All right. This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver. And so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here. A regular meeting of council for Monday, April 27th at 7 o'clock. Feel good.
What's happening? Like
Your microphone is on. Fantastic. We'd like to start this meeting off in a good way, and so Councillor Pope has offered to read our land acknowledgement tonight.
Thank you. My apologies. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated with the package. I'd like to make one minor alteration, which is to move the last item, the Roche Point Forest discussion, up to the front of the meeting. It's been moved and seconded. I'll prepare to call a question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Council, we have one set. We have one set of meeting minutes from the March 2nd regular meeting of council. And are there any errors or omissions in that meeting minutes? Hearing none, it's been moved. Is there a seconder for those meeting minutes? Second by Councillor Forbes. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, our council reserves a period of up to 30 minutes at the front end of any regular meeting of council for input from the public on issues of concern. And we do have a speakers list that gets signed up in advance. But it looks like there's only a few speakers there, so we'll be able to add names tonight. So at this point, I'd like to call on David Cook to come up and have a seat. And we'll get the microphones turned on for you there.
Well, this projector.
Yeah, we'll get the camera on. That's about right.
And these are the reports, so I'll put them.
Yeah, if you put the black tray, they'll be shared with the council.
Okay. My name is, good evening, Mayor Little and Council.
David, actually, we're just going to get that zoomed in if we can, so that we can't still. Oh, okay. All right, that's about as tight as we're going to be able to get tonight. My apologies. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay. My name is David Cook. I reside at 1788 Emerson Court, North Vancouver. I support the proposal for dedication of Roche Point Forest as parkland in its entirety. Roche Point Forest consists of a very peculiar configured park, as you can see on the map here. Very strange shape. Together with land that is zoned for residential, and that's this area here, which is zoned as residential. All the forested areas south of Seymour Gulf, all of the forested area south of the Seymour Golf and Country Club, which is here. It also has some magnificent maple trees, which are located in the residential, largely in the residential area. An indicator of the biodiversity of this forest is the large number of approximately 100 species of fungi, which were observed over a 12-year period. Roche Point Forest is an essential component of the Cates Park Mount Seymour Greenway, which comes down here. Which connects the North Shore Mountains with Burrard Inlet. This allows for healthy dean flow from the North Shore Mountains as species travel to and fro along this corridor. In other words, the genetic health of the forest species remains healthy and strong. My report of 2012 and the 1994 exceptional field notes of Glenn Ryder, both submitted to the district, or previously submitted to the district, again placed here. And that they attest to these conclusions, and both reports are submitted here. That's the conclusion.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I will say just, Mr. Cook, just so the area that is being proposed is even larger than the footprint that's in there. It actually goes all the way west to the border with the Tsleil-Waututh. So it's not just what had historically been called the Roche Point park. It's actually the whole parcel. So if you look under 8.7, you'll see an even bigger map protecting the whole area.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you very much for your comments, and thank you. I think 20 years ago you took me for a walk through that park, and appreciate your advocacy over the years supporting it. So thank you for coming out tonight. The next speaker I have is Julia Stanton. Is that a virtual participant? I don't see a name that reflects Julia Stanton online, that someone signed up with that name. Okay, so we're going to carry on. Would anybody else like to speak in this evening's meeting? Yes, please come on up. Robin, have a seat.
Thank you.
Welcome, and when you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity and council to speak to you. My name is Robin Delaney, and I live in the Edgemont Village area. My son and my wife and I own and operate Delaney's Coffee. I'm here tonight to give my support to Mike and council to do the right thing. Doing the right thing is getting rid of it. Doing whatever you can to not allow the vape shop to open in Edgemont Village. It's so obvious to all 7 of you and the staff. How it ever got to this point is absolutely beyond me. And I believe in my heart of hearts that between the 7 of you, there is an answer. I don't have that answer, but I believe that the 7 of you do, and you have a very capable staff that will help you get that answer. Don't allow them to open. It's absolute lunacy. Particularly when they had the original front of their store had kids candy and vape. So I think it's called snack and vape. And they were advised wisely to take it down because it shows exactly who their target audience is. It's not this group here. It's high schoolers, Handsworth High School kids, university kids who anyway. I wish I could be of some help to say what you need to do, but we do need to do that. You will be wildly rewarded by the community by saying, thank you, you did the right thing, and it's difficult. Good luck. You have my support.
Thank you very much for your comments, Robin Delaney. Would anybody else like to address me? Yes, please come on up. Welcome. If you could start with your name for the record, and when you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Sure. My name is Emily Siegel. I live in the area as well, and I came as a concerned parent who I have tween daughters who spend a tremendous amount of time in Edgemont Village, and they are so excited about a new snack shop, and they are completely confused by this concept and the vape or smoke and snack. And they're excited because when you
smoke to snack.
Oh, sorry. But when you look at the pictures on the outside of the windows, it's bright colors that it lures kids. And you look at the only thing that's displayed are fun snacks, energy drinks that teenagers like. I'm not in support of energy drink, but but Prime, chips, candies, it's really sends a terrible message. It's just awful. It's really awful. And I understand that businesses have a right, but when your business model is luring kids in and your business is for unhealthy habits in addition to snacks, it's really concerning. And I know there are a lot of other parents. I mean, I think over 3,000 people have signed a petition about this. And yeah.
Thank you very much for your comments. Would anybody else like to address the meeting? Yes, please, at the back. Welcome, and if you could provide your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Great. My name's Alice Hambleton. I live at 3420 Mount Seymour Parkway. My dad built the house with my mother when it was a 2-lane dirt road. He built 4 houses there, but I'm here to support the Roche Point Forest proposal. It's a great forest. It has a trail that goes behind Sherwood Park Elementary. And as I'm here to support David in his application to protect the old growth trees that are there and the heritage trees in this lower elevation. So that's why I'm speaking. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Alice Hambleton. Okay, would anybody else like to address the meeting? This includes virtual participants. If you raise your virtual hand, we'll do our best to get you on. I don't see anyone else at this time, so we're going to carry on with this evening's agenda. We do have the next item for consideration is, that's right. Sorry, I was just going to say about the vape shop. So we do have some public discussion coming up on the matter. First, I will say that the municipalities themselves, we don't pick the business that goes into the space. That's between the owner of the property and the business that's applying to the space. And so long as they meet the provincial regulations, we don't normally have a role in that. Obviously, the provincial government does pass on some authority to the municipalities when it comes to cannabis stores and liquor stores, that they do a referral to the municipality in those cases. But in these cases, the matter was not referred to the council ahead of time. They have the ability to get a business license, and the relationship is with the property owner. And so I think that we've had some interest in council and in looking at alternatives in this space, be it signage or appealing to the provincial government for another level of intervention. But Councillor Murray had a report you were considering. Councillor Back, you had a report you were considering on the matter. I don't know if you want to just quickly comment on what it is that we'll be having as a public discussion in future on it.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I have a report drafted, and I'm hoping that perhaps the clerk can let us know which agenda could be on. But it is directing staff to bring back a motion on options on how we limit vape shops in our community, particularly in village and town centers. So we do have control over the various uses within the commercial zone. It is something we do have the ability to limit. So that report hopefully will be coming back soon.
And I submitted the same request from staff to remove the use of vape shops within the District of North Vancouver's boundaries, to not allow them, period. So Councillor Back and I are on the same page with this, to bring it forward for council consideration.
That will be on a public agenda as soon as we reasonably can fit it in with our spring agenda moving forward. I will say that there is a slightly different aspect to it, which is the signage on the facility. Under normal conditions, the municipality has very overt controls over signage on a facility. When it's a window sign, it's interesting. It's an area that some of the legislation has a bit of a gap in. And so we're going to have to look at that as something as well. I may have missed a virtual participant who wanted. Oh, this is going on. That's going on to the next presentation. So just to be clear, that item will be coming on a spring agenda soon, and we'll advertise leading up to it for discussion. The next item up for discussion, we're back onto the regular meeting order here. And so the next is delegations. This is the Cairnstone Planning on behalf of Northern Development Initiative Trust. What's different about a delegation is it's an organization in the community that we're going to have a bit of a presentation from, about a 5-minute presentation, and then council has an opportunity to ask clarifying questions at the tail end of the delegation. And so today we do have some guests joining us virtually here to discuss rail issues in the 99 corridor. And so welcome, Peter. If you're leading the delegation, go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable Council. This is Peter Schultz with Cairnstone Planning, patching in from Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta. I will share a screen with you and do a summary and update on the project which we are discussing today. Can you see my screen clearly?
Yes.
Great. I will go to slideshow so you can see it clearly. Okay. The project is called the Prince George to North Vancouver Railway, transitioning from Class 1 management. This project has been ongoing since January 2nd of this year. It is in the final stages, but we are hoping and anticipating a phase 2 will begin in the near future. My name is Peter Schultz, Master of Arts from University of British Columbia. I'm a professional transportation planner and a registered town and regional planner. I was raised in Mission, British Columbia and Deca Lake before moving to Alberta and Nunavut. My associate, who's not here today, is Dean Doki. He is a counselor and leader with West Moberly First Nations and has been leading First Nations reach out on this corridor. The key points on this project is that Canadian National Railways in July of 2025 applied to discontinue the railway between Squamish and 100 Mile House. Under the Canada Transportation Act, as of July 2026, they will issue or are likely to issue a 2-month or longer period where other parties could take over this. And if no one is found that is either qualified or interested, an offer will be made to federal, provincial, and municipal governments to consider taking the track over. And if they are not interested, then CN could change its mind and decide to keep it, or they can then apply to shut down the track and possibly remove the tracks permanently. This project was organized by mayors from municipalities between North Vancouver and Prince George and is being paid for by Northern Development Initiative Trust, which is out of Prince George. I'm already at 3 minutes. I'm going to try to do my 12-minute presentation in 6 or 7 minutes. This map tells a story. If you see a red line on the map, it is an active railway. If it's a white line on the map, it is a deactivated railway. What we see in this map is a story of the deindustrialization of Canada, and that occurred between the 1980s and the early 2000s, and we saw the major railways heavily consolidate on their primary trunk lines between the major ports and the major metropolitan areas and begin a process of systematically shutting down spur lines. And we saw in the prairies locals taking up short line railroading, where they would just get access to a short line railway and then get a locomotive that they could serve their local communities and regions and conduct assemble trains to get to the major metropolitan areas for connection to the Class 1s. The same thing is happening in British Columbia. It's just later because there's fewer railways here. You see the big red line south of Quesnel that will be turning white if this project is not successful. Success on this project will look like finding a credible short line railway willing to take this over. At least one have been found, and 2 or 3 others are looking and doing their due diligence process. Letter of interest amongst all or most of the First Nations along the line of future involvement or ownership for them, that they're basically saying they're interested in discussing the future of this railway. We have 7 letters and anticipate a few more before the project wraps up in next month. Common understanding amongst communities and senior governments of the strategic and economic importance of the railway. That's what this delegation is. I've given this very similar presentation to a large number of municipalities along the line. And active discussion of scrapping the railway has ceased. That's a subjective measure, but 3 key numbers I want to bring forward for your attention are, and my 70 seconds remaining. Number 1 is the historical traffic on this rail corridor was 750,000 tons a year. The due diligence by one of the short line railways, the due diligence by a inland port company that wishes to set up an inland port at 100 Mile House and use the Port of Squamish said that there's 750,000 tons a year of latent demand. Those two numbers are the same. And the short line railway came up with a number that they need to move about 250,000 tons a year in order to break even. So I can say with some confidence that the anticipated latent demand is 3 times what the break-even point is. Now, how does this relate to North Vancouver? Differently than other communities farther north, because you do have traffic originating and ending at North Vancouver. This is where traffic from the north will be coming into sorry, it's blinking at me, so it's making me nervous. This is where traffic from the Caribou would be coming into Metro Vancouver, especially if there's a grocery/passenger service running from the North Shore or up to Caribou. And what that implies is potentially greater use of the Second Narrows Rail Bridge, which would bring our attention to the need for maintenance or upgrades to that bridge, and also the potential for reinitiation of passenger services from North Vancouver to the Caribou. What that would look like, we don't know, but we have found what appears to be a relatively small but consistent demand for such services. Thank you. I open up for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Peter. I guess I'll open up, in some historical cases, you've had CN flags, the Class 1 carrier flags, surplus rail, and then they immediately go to dismantle the rail as soon as they can, which has the effect of stopping competition so that short lines can't pop up and compete with the Class 1 carrier in a particular region. So I think for competitive purposes, we definitely have an interest in maintaining that rail in that space. But the challenge is always going to be the business case to be able to pay for the improvements that are going to be necessary. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the northern section, although I worked in rail and transloading for a very long time. I'm not as familiar with the northern section of the line, but I know the southern section has run into a rather deteriorated state. And rather than doing the capital upgrades that were necessary, they just kept lowering the speed limit. And so the trains passing through sort of the Pasco Road to Britannia Beach stretch are typically only going about 40 kilometers an hour. And so if you're mostly competing with buses and trucks that are doing, 80 or 90 kilometers an hour on a more direct route and can go end to end, terminus to terminus, where the rail is quite often going to need a transload when it gets to one end or the other. How is this corridor going to be able to raise the capital to be able to do it, or is it going to rely on grants from the government in order to be able to expand the space? What's the general plan for paying for this?
That's a very insightful question. Thank you for it. The short line railway that is most interested is estimated a CapEx expenditure requirement of 110 million over 10 years on a declining scale. And we have through a third-hand party, the third-hand party happens to be a member of parliament, indicating that CN estimates $90 million over 10 years. So those two numbers, again, are fairly close to each other. The BC Rail Revitalization Agreement with the province of British Columbia, the track and the right-of-way are still owned by the province of British Columbia through the BC Rail Properties Organization, which reports directly to the Ministry of Transportation. The agreement in 2004 required CN to return the track in in the condition in which it was received in 2003. That is the short answer to your question, but obviously that leads to so what and what's next. And that is a Gordian knot we are currently looking at. We want to find an arrangement that is in a win-win-win-win situation where CN is profiting as well. And also we're maintaining strategic redundancy in the system, and we're finding that we anticipate a considerable economic revival in the Caribou should this railway be reestablished. So that at this stage, we're looking at all options, and I'm anticipating my best guess is going to be mix of CN having to cover some of the operating costs, BCRP having to be involved in overseeing that, and possibly some federal bridge grants or funding to assist the organization or the new organization, which may be partially First Nation owned. So I'm giving you a slew of possible things we're looking at. I'm not giving you an answer because we don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I know it's exploratory at this point, but if there is a legal obligation returned to the state it was in 2003, I don't know the specific times and dates on that. I was more BNSF and SRY when I was involved in rail, but I'm pretty sure that was a 60-kilometer-an-hour stretch of rail. And so that would seem to obligate them to do some significant capital upgrades in the lower part of the route. But I hadn't heard that discussed by the province or other groups. But if that is an obligation, then they either would be obligated to pay compensation or do the upgrade to the track. But it was clearly a faster track in 2003. Okay, well, I know the history on the track. I mean, originally this track was called PG&E, the Pacific Great Eastern, but the joke was that it was the Prince George eventually, because it just kept getting delayed and deferred throughout its history. And there's a bunch of political cartoons through the 60s and 70s up until the completion of the line that all joke about how it just can't seem to complete the task that was set out for it in, I think, the 1930s. And so it only stayed in full operation for, a relatively short period of time compared to how long it was promised for. But I hope there's a future use for it. And I think North Shore Industries would love to be a part of that going forward and supplying that region, the Caribou region, through that corridor. Next speaker I have is Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schultz, for your advocacy on this important issue. Just perhaps a clarifying matter. You talked about the historical demand, 750,000 tons. You talked about a break-even point of 250,000 tons. Can you comment at all upon CN's decision to decommission the railway? What was the reason, if with these demands and profitabilities, why is CN, why is it not a good choice for them? Why are they not continuing to operate? Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Oh, my pleasure. I can't answer that question directly. I'm not a representative of CN, and they have not issued a public statement as to why. Having said that, the overall railroading industry was bifurcated by the deindustrialization process, in which our society lost much of its manufacturing base in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s. So the big railways focused very heavily on upgrading their main lines, getting them up 80, 90, 100, 110 kilometers an hour, big trains a mile long, 2 miles long, moving double stack containers. And that is actually a completely different industry when you're talking to a Class 1 railroader than when you're talking to a short line railroader. It's like comparing a Walmart donut factory that produces 300,000 donuts a day versus a mom and pop shop. So what you find with short line railroads is they focus on a white glove service, providing a door-to-door service responsive to their clients, and they are financially incentivized to build up local clientele. And having spoken to many CN retirees and BC Rail retirees, I've developed a bit of a consistent image of that. This is a short line preferred railway. It never will be a 90 or 100 kilometer hour railway. It is always going to be a 50 or 60 kilometer. It's designed to serve industry in the local area, get it to port, and to get small numbers of passengers into fairly remote mountainous communities that may have road access, but difficult road access. So, but I'm also trying to exemplify that we are looking for solutions that are positive to CN, both financially and in terms of PR. And we do believe that such solutions do exist. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next I've got Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank you, Peter, for your presentation. Could you just share with Council sort of the immediate nature of the deadline that is looming for a decision in regards to this potential divestiture from CN in regards to this line, and sort of what is the urgent need that we need to sort of focus on prior to many of these questions being answered?
Yes, thank you. No railway that has been torn up has ever been rebuilt in Canada. As of July 2026, well, I'll back up a little bit. Because a short line railway, which is operational and franchised, has stated that they are at the concluding stages of their due diligence and wish to take operation under the Canada Transportation Act, I believe section 141 or 142, but excuse me if I'm wrong. CN could begin negotiations right now to transfer that over. But they can also choose not to, and they can issue a proposal process starting in July, which must last for a minimum of 60 days. So that's July, August, September of this year. And we don't know what the evaluation framework for this proposals would be for how they evaluate which railways they would consider qualified or not qualified. This should be done in coordination with BC Rail Properties, which, as I said, is the provincial body which controls the track and the right-of-way, because they're the landowner. The CN is just the leaseholder. But as of September, if they're not satisfied with that, then an offer will be made to government, and that is all three levels. That is federal, provincial, and municipal. First Nations are not included. This act was written sometime in the last decade. We do not anticipate the feds will be interested because the track and the right-of-way are owned by the province. At this stage, we've had no indication of interest in operating the railway by the province, which would bring us to the municipalities as a final backup to offer some sort of arrangement to take control of the right-of-way. Now, it is permitted for municipalities and First Nations to form development corporations or economic development corporations, and we have presented to most of the First Nations, including Squamish Nation. We have approached Tsleil-Waututh as well about their interest. They're looking into that and they're considering. I'm not answering a question. I'm laying out an option of ranges. But I can say that if CN boots out the short lines that want to take it over by July, and then the municipalities are given a time, the governments are given a chance to take it over, and they don't act on it, which is September, October, then CN and BCRP are legitimately in a place where they can make arrangements for the track to be removed and the steel removed for salvage. And that will likely be the end of rail service. And based on what I've seen, I think it would be a devastating blow to the southern interior of British Columbia. And should there be a major event in the Fraser Canyon that shuts down traffic at the Boston Bar area or Lytton area, which is entirely possible, it has happened in the past, up to 5 weeks at a time in the 1960s. The only way to get into Metro Vancouver is through North Vancouver from the north.
Can you also comment in regards to the provincial government not necessarily running the line, but taking the position that they want to retain the line for a period of time to allow due diligence on the business case and economic opportunities that may exist?
I can't comment on that. The provincial government, the staff have only responded to me once, and that was in March, and I haven't communicated with them since. Not that I am not open to communicating at them, but they haven't made that opportunity.
Correspondence has been directed towards the provincial ministries to the Premier in regards to the importance to retain the line?
Yes, mainly through the elected officials in the Sea to Sky and Harbour region.
Thank you.
And I can confirm that I've met with MLA Bowen Ma on that subject and conveyed my concerns about the removal of that line, specifically on behalf of other municipalities. The 100 Mile and Williams Lake have both already said that they'd lost industrial projects to their community because of the uncertainty of that line. And so that was conveyed to our MLA through me. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Peter, very sobering presentation. It's very unfortunate that this rail line's under threat of being removed or dismantled, as you mentioned. This thinking that if the feds and the province may not be interested, and I believe I heard you. Now we're looking at the municipal and probably some sort of consortium or working together with First Nations. To me, that's going to take a while. If the line is not dismantled, and you need time to look at other options, what is a ballpark of the cost needed to kind of keep the line in good condition that it could be operated in the future? Is there an annual cost that, this may be a ballpark?
Thank you.
Mr. Schultz?
Thank you. I'll say clearly, a short line railway has said that they are willing to have locomotives on this track by the end of fall of 2026 operating. The track is in operational condition. The Rocky Mountaineer will continue to operate this season. They have said if this issue is not resolved, they will permanently discontinue service from North Vancouver northwards through Quesnel to Jasper. So the market has been very, very clear. This railway is a profitable item. They're willing to move on it. The short line has said that they anticipate $110 million over 10 years to maintain and upgrade the railway, at which time, to bring it up to the condition it was in 2003, at which time they would be willing to take over the maintenance costs, which would be wrapped into that $250,000 a year tonnage amount. Because when you're short line railway, it's like driving a car. It's not just the gas. You also have to do the oil changes, and then you have to do have to change the timing belt every 100,000. It's the same thing with railways. It's just different types of factors. And the CN, the number I've heard is $90 million over 10 years. And that's sort of considered as a sliding scale. Ideally, the first 20 million or so would go in starting this fall. Start over the winter time. We'd do some serious upgrades this year and next, and then it sloughs off. You don't have to do as much every year. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't see any further comments or questions from council. Receipt has been moved. Oh, sorry, Mr. Schultz, is there a clarifying comment?
I am an RPP, registered professional planner, and I have to take this opportunity to put in a pitch. Start thinking about how to put a train station in at Lonsdale Quay, underneath one of those decks or something that's right near the quay by the bus stop. I think if we're successful at that, I do think you're going to have some small passenger trains coming through there, and it'd be great to see some people be able to walk from a train onto the C bus at some point in the near future. That's me talking. I'm not being paid to say that, but as an RPP, I just think it'd be really cool.
You got your plug in. All right. Thank you very much for your comments. So it's moved by Councillor Murray. Was that a second from Councillor Ma? Oh, further question? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz, for the presentation. I feel like this is a much bigger topic than we really can really get into now. But I'm just wondering if you've presented to the other North Shore councils, being the City of North Van and the District of West Vancouver.
The District of North Vancouver, I was scheduled to present an hour and a half ago, and they had something on overtime, so I'm being asked to join them in 4 minutes. And the City of North Vancouver has refused to hear my delegation. They consider to be outside of jurisdiction.
However,
Seems like this is a topic that we need to be working united across the North Shore on, with Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish included. And I know we have another motion, so we'll have another chance to talk about that local working together.
Yeah. I can update you on that one.
But I would support a further, more robust conversation on this. It does feel like a bigger topic that could warrant it if we can find a time.
I will say that West Vancouver's mayor, I haven't heard it come from the council, but they've actually said that they prefer turning the section up to Squamish into a bike path. And so at this point, we don't have a unanimous position on the North Shore, and we're trying to work and find common ground amongst the three municipalities on how to present going forward. But there's no question there's an immediate impact on industries on the northern section of the rail. Mr. Schultz?
That West Vancouver position has softened.
There you go. All right. Updated info. There you go. Okay, it's been moved. Receipt has been moved and seconded. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary mind. Motion is carried. Thank you very much for your delegation this evening. We appreciate the information.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Right, Council, at the beginning of the evening, we did vary the agenda slightly to move item 8.7, the Roche Point Park dedication discussion up, because we have a number of guests here in the room that were here for that specific issue. And so at this point, Councillor Murray, this is your motion. Do you have some opening comments on the matter? And then we'll see. Let's get a seconder right away, and then we'll have further comments.
I'll move the recommendation.
Recommendations moved, seconded by, I saw Councillor Ma's hand first. Councillor Ma. So Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. David Cook for years and years of work in regards to the extensive reports that he has submitted to multiple councils. I'm sorry it's taken this long, but better late than never. This is a magical part of the Seymour community, holding a small amount of what we really don't see anymore in this province, which is old growth forest. And we're very lucky to have a piece of it within our borders. We're losing our tree canopy slowly within the urban footprint of Metro Vancouver. And Metro Vancouver recognizes that from a regional body that the tree canopy is disappearing. 30 years ago, when I first stepped into this room as an elected councillor, we saved 1,000 acres in the Seymour from development. And it was one of the best decisions our community has ever made. And we protected that land for generations in perpetuity. And many of the people sitting in this room were part of that lobby. And we're all very proud of that work. And it was a good decision, because as we've grown, as the region's grown, we need more places for people to be able to step outside their backyards into nature. And we're not making any more nature. In fact, we're watching it disappear through climate change, through development, and it's heartbreaking. So when we have a piece that is this wild right in the center of a neighborhood, it's a no-brainer. Our parks are identified as natural parkland, special parkland. They're not all protected parkland. They're not all dedicated. And the beauty of dedication is that the only way to undedicate them is to go back to the electorate and ask. And I'm pretty sure that if we ever went to this electorate in this municipality and said, do you want to undo a park? The answer would be a resounding no. We're very protective of our green space. We know the value of it. We know the biodiversity and what it offers our planet and our community. And we know what it offers our four-legged friends and our friends with wings, because a great deal of the Seymour is part of a larger migratory bird path. And it feeds the lower slopes of Seymour, McCartney, Windridge, and it feeds into Maplewood Mudflats, which is one of our most prized areas in the community. We're losing parts of that migratory bird path. And we have to be very careful of what we're developing and what we're protecting, and recognize that everything is connected. Everything is knitted together. It's full circle, how we exist with nature and with ourselves. So I'm just thrilled to be able to bring this forward. Mr. Cook, I'm thrilled that you're able to be here tonight with us. You still amaze me how you're hiking in those forests regularly still. And again, thank you for your work, and thanks for so many residents in our community that wrote letters. We got so many. So thank you to the community for stepping up and telling us what you know is important. And I hope council sees fit to support this motion and dedicate this park in perpetuity for future generations. Thank you, Mayor Little.
Councilor Murray. Councilor Mo.
Thank you. Also want to thank Councilor Murray for bringing this report forward, and all the residents who sent feedback in via email. It's filled our inboxes, so and thank you for that. I've been to the park before, and I had the pleasure on this weekend of having a tour of the area with a local resident. So thank you, Janet. I had a great time walking the trails and learning about Water World, where the children from Sherwood Park play. As Councilor Murray mentioned, the outdoor space is one of the key elements that make the North Shore special. As the district evolves, especially with additional housing, we need to strike that balance between preserving our parks while meeting the needs of people already living here, new people moving here, and people coming here to work and attend school. So I am very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ma. Councilor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also like to thank Councillor Murray for bringing this forward, and Mr. Cook for his longtime advocacy on this important issue. I do know the area well, and there are, as Councillor Murray said, so many reasons to protect these lands for all peoples and all times. This area serves as an important wildlife corridor, but it's also just a beautiful forest with significant old growth elements. For my part, I would be interested in us looking at other natural areas in the district and expanding our parkland dedications across other areas again, so these areas are protected for all peoples and for all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. Councilor Beck.
Thank you, Mayor Little, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for the report. As well, I want to thank Mr. Cook for your presentation and what looks like many years of advocacy for protecting this beautiful part of the district. I'll admit it's not an area of the district I spent a lot of time in. I didn't grow up in that part of the district, and it's been in recent years, actually, when we've been looking at the Spirit Trail, different alignments for the Spirit Trail, that I got to spend some time in Roche Point. It's a spectacular area. I agree that it's a magical part of our community, and it's been acting like a park in every way for many years. And I'll be supporting the motion, absolutely. I want to make that clear. But in the staff report back, I hope we can get a little bit more of the history of what's been considered in the past. What did previous councils consider? I mean, I'm glad that it's coming forward now, but why is it coming now? What was the response back when previous reports have been brought forward? And then I also want to understand if there's any potential unintended consequences. I mean, when you're talking about a piece of land this big, a dedication, it carries weight in perpetuity, as Councilor Murray has highlighted. So I guess I just want to understand the assessment of long-term implications of dedicating this big a parcel as parkland. Again, I'm totally supportive. I just want to have kind of all of the information, and I felt like this report answers some questions, but perhaps staff can include a little bit more context and history in their report back. But I think this is something that we should be proud of, and I agree with Councillor Hanson. Maybe we should be looking at other areas of the district where we can provide the same level of protection, because it's what defines our community, our natural areas, trails and parks. And so I think it's a really progressive and positive thing. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Second time, Councillor Murray.
Just gonna, with the clerk's indulgence, I'm just going to put up a few maps. So this is the current zoning. The yellow is the current zoning of the area. It's on you can look at Google GeoWeb. It's a great GIS tool that the district created many years ago. We won an award for it. And so this is the existing zoning. RS1 is single family, RS3, RS2. As Mr. Cook presented at the beginning of the meeting, it's kind of a hodgepodge of zoning and park because we've got Roche Point Park to the east, and then we've got natural parkland to the west off of Roche Point. The strip of yellow boxes on the left-hand side where it says RS3, those are spec lots that were cut many years ago, and you can see many spec lots throughout the municipality that are forest, that are park, but the zoning has never changed. If we can go to the next map, Madam Clerk. So this is the OCP. And this, all of that yellow has now turned to green, and it's park and open space natural area parks. Years ago, we did a sort of a hybrid of our natural park land, special park land. We wanted to sort of catalog it all. And so this is what the official community plan states in regards to this area. At the bottom, you can see RS2 lots, there's 4 of them, and then there's a space green that's attached to the park, and then the formal lots with addresses and people living in the houses. So what part of the bylaws will come back, will rezone those 4 lots that sit within the park that we all know, and then the rest of the area will be transferred over to dedicated parkland, not needing to be rezoned because it's already been identified in the plan. And if I have one more second, I have one more map, Madam Clerk. And this big, huge, fluffy green area is what we get at the end. This beautiful forest protected, and so that's the prize. There's neighborhoods that exist around it, the golf course to the north, but this is the forest that will remain intact for perpetuity. Thank you, Mayor Little.
Thank you. Yeah, just my own comments on it. I did grow up in the area and did use these trails on a regular basis. That's how we got back and forth to Kate's Park from where I lived. And I live about 3 blocks from there now, and with our kids, once they upgraded the Roche Point Trail through to Sherwood Park Elementary School, that was sort of our loop and circuit in our neighborhood when the kids were all learning to bike. So know the area very well. Had the pleasure of walking through the space with Mr. Cook. I honestly think it was almost 20 years ago when we wandered through the area and took a look at some of the erosion, and I believe you gave me a good talking to about nurse trees, I believe was the discussion we had, or it was about some of the different features of the areas we were going through and looking at everything that was in there. It is a special place in our community. I don't think in my entire time we've ever talked about developing this for anything other than green space or park, but it became clear that it didn't actually have the protections that we would have expected for an area that's a greenfield area of such size and trail use. And so, but I had a lot of questions about it. What's the best level of protection? How do you achieve that? And I thought that it was actually only by referendum. And so that was cleared up for me recently, saying actually, you now have the ability to, by simple majority of council, vote it in, and then you would have to use referendum, a higher level of public assent to vote it back out. And so this is the right way to give it the top level of protection, is to dedicate it as a park in the municipal function. And then any future councils would be have to use either a full referendum process or what they call an alternate approval process, which again includes a very large public engagement portion before it. So this is the highest level of protection that we can give it as a municipality, and I'm very happy to add my name in support of creating this new park. And so looking forward to the next stage of this process, but I hope that we can protect this space for many generations to come. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you. At this point, I am going to step away, and Councillor Murray is going to move in as the acting mayor and take over the chair. And so you're in capable hands.
Oh, I gotta raise my chair up. He's a little taller than. Just a little. Okay, Madam Clerk. Oh, and he's got a fan on. Hold on, let me turn the fan off. There we go. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the motion of passenger rail services within the Sea to Sky corridor. And that is a motion that I have put forward. And I would just like, with council's indulgence, if we could add passenger and commuter rail services within the Sea to Sky corridor. Councillor Ma and I have had a discussion to add the existing commuter rail services within the Sea to Sky corridor. And so I'll be moving that. And if I could ask for a seconder, Councillor Ma is the seconder. Thank you very much. Just by way of background, I was asked to sit on a committee made up of municipalities that include West Vancouver, Lions Bay, Squamish, and then north beyond Squamish to 100 Mile House to look at the retention of this BC rail land. And Councillor Back, you're correct, this is a much bigger conversation. Mr. Schultz is a consultant that was hired to look into the possibility of continuing to maintain this BC rail land or line and not allow CN to divest the property. I think he made it very clear that once the line is taken out, it is never going to go back in. You know, we often make decisions in the past, and I've reflected on this in the years that I've sat here as a councillor, that sometimes we were a little bit ahead of ourselves and we made decisions, and now we're here now thinking, and I'm thinking, why did we make that decision? We were just a little bit ahead of our time. And I can't help but feel like we're in the same place here. If we let this line go, we lose opportunities. And those opportunities are an alternative way to get to Whistler, to Squamish, to Pemberton. Right now, the lineup on the weekends, certainly in the ski season, but even in the summer months, the traffic is a ridiculous bottleneck of cars heading up that highway, because as the population grows, more people want to get out into the backcountry. They want to experience these communities with rock climbing and hiking and mountain bike riding beyond our corridors. We are a throughput for tourism on the North Shore. When Philip Owen, the mayor of the city of Vancouver, fought against running a highway through the city of Vancouver in the 70s, you know, it was a great decision. It created a sustainable city within the borders of the city of Vancouver. It split the North Shore. The city below, the district above, for all intents and purposes. And this traffic is becoming more challenging and problematic as the days and months and years go by. We are heavily pursuing pressure to the provincial government and the federal government in regards to a replacement bridge for the Second Narrows Iron Workers Memorial, because it is beyond its capacity. It cannot handle the load. It's the busiest bridge in the region. And this traffic is only growing to the Sea to Sky and to Vancouver Island with the ferry system. So we need alternatives. The money that was allocated for the Broadway corridor line, a professor at SFU had made a presentation to this council and many councils throughout the region a number of years ago, saying that the money identified for that connection to UBC actually should have come. It was part of a school project at SFU. It actually should have come to the North Shore and to offer an alternative of light rail and a connection up into Squamish and Whistler and Pemberton. We used to have the line. Betty used to take it to go up and visit up in the north, and many of us were on the Royal Hudson. We remember the BC Rail Station at the foot of Pemberton, and we would love to actually see that happen again. So there was an alternate option for us to travel between those communities. It's a no-brainer. It makes sense, but right now, the thing that we have to focus on is maintaining that line and having the provincial government allow the due diligence to take place. So those are my comments, and I'll go to Councillor Ma as the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Murray, for bringing this report forward. You know, I recall the first time I heard about this opportunity was probably back at UBCM in September. There was a big group of elected officials from many municipalities and First Nations along the rail corridor. And I recall that I was there with Councillor Hanson and Mayor Little. I want to also thank Councillor Murray for amending her motion to include commuter rail. As mentioned earlier, there are bigger issues here and multiple potential stakeholders along the corridor. For myself, I'm interested in assessing the feasibility of a rush hour commuter train from Squamish to North Shore, similar to the West Coast Express that runs from Mission to downtown Vancouver. The goal would be to reduce the number of vehicle trips to the North Shore. As per the recent report that came before Council about 2 weeks ago, we know that on average per weekday, there are over 130,000 vehicle crossings over the Second Narrows Iron Workers Memorial Bridge. It would be helpful to know how much traffic is coming from Squamish, which also contributes to the overall traffic volume and congestion in the district. You know, in looking at our transportation, I know that our engineering staff are on top of this, that we should really be looking at the traffic coming from the east over the bridge, but also from the northwest coming down Highway 99. I sincerely hope that the provincial government takes into account the views of the many municipalities and First Nations along the rail route when they consider what to do with that rail line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Back.
Thank you very much. I'll be supporting this motion. I've long believed that we should be using the rail lines that we have and make greater use of them through this existing rail corridor. I think commuter rail really does work. West Coast Express is a local example. In the GTA and Hamilton region of Ontario, it's the GO train. Much bigger passenger rail network that's very well used. They see very, very high ridership because it is that alternative to driving for people that are commuting every day. So when you see the kind of growth that the District of Squamish has experienced, they've been one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada. That traffic comes right through our district here in North Vancouver. And as I often say, the traffic that we see is not our traffic. It's coming through. And Squamish definitely is a big piece of it. So I'm certainly supportive of anything that could move towards commuter rail between the two communities. I guess what I want to understand is realistically, what's the district's role beyond advocacy at this point? And how can we make sure that we're working again, like I made in my earlier comments, as a unified voice across the North Shore. I think it's really important. So I think, seeing whatever we can do to pull together would be beneficial. And then what sort of feasibility work, we heard a little bit of from our presenter about what sort of feasibility work could we be doing now to make this elevate this conversation even more. Those are just some questions that I don't know that they can be answered tonight, but happy to support the writing a letter for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. I just wanted to add, the City of North Vancouver, the reason the delegation was rejected was because within their parameters of delegations, it was outside of their requirements. I did speak to the Mayor of the City of North Vancouver this morning, and she's going to be looking into allowing the delegation to appear before the city.
Actually, I think I was just going to say, I actually think it'd be a great topic for the two councils to come together and actually spend some time on just the only topic so that we can really delve into how we can work together to make it happen.
Absolutely. And then including along the lines of West Vancouver and Lions Bay as well. They're very interested in support for this project. Right now, we're just trying to get the provincial government to maintain the line and not allow CN to move into the direction of divestment. And I'm wondering if Mr. Fox has any additional comments in regards to that. No, you're good? Okay. All right. Just thought I'd give you an opportunity. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Mary. Now, Acting Mayor Mary for bringing forward this motion. Also, thank you to the councillors who've spoken before me. I did learn, as Councillor Moss said, about this initiative broadly at the UBCM in September. And I mean, my comment, and it's a statement of the obvious, now is not the time to decommission transportation options to and from the North Shore. We need alternatives to motor vehicles, and this line could be part of these alternatives. So thank you, Councillor Murray. Happy to do all I can to assist in this advocacy for this rail service.
Thank you so much, Councillor Hanson. I did just want to also add that LMLGA, there is going to be a motion on the floor in regards to this item. It is coming forward to the convention, and many of us are attending the convention this week. It starts on Wednesday at Whistler. Squamish they have met with Squamish, and they are reaching out to Tsleil-Waututh as well. I believe there's 7 other First Nations that they've already met with and have support. And on Friday, a resident of Whistler who commutes to North Vancouver for work, based on a story that was in the Peak, and then based on this motion, started a petition, and it's at about 543 people since Friday, and growing. So there's a lot of people that are really, really interested in this initiative, and we just need to keep that rail line. So I wanted to update. So I don't, now I've got Councillor Hanson, your hand's still up. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Mary. I support this wholeheartedly. I have a son who lives up in that area, sort of a little off from 100 Mile and a little south of Williams Lake. And I know a great deal about what that community is going through with the resource industries that are being shut down and how that's impacting them. So they are really interested in having this rail come to life for them and bring back some prosperity up there. And as Councillor Murray mentioned, for about a half a dozen years when I was a teenager, I used to catch the train by myself and go up to a horse ranch and spend the summer working at the horse ranch and then come back down. So I never realized how good that was for my parents. So I'm quite familiar with the area, and I will work to do anything we can do to get this preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a very important connection for those smaller municipalities north of Squamish, for sure. For us, it's about passenger commuters and finding another way to get out of our car to get to these destinations. So it's there's benefits on both sides of it. It's a great grassroots working group, and they meet quite regularly, and they've done a lot of work in a very short period of time. First-term councillor Trudy Klassen from 100 Mile House is the one sort of behind this initiative, and she's done a tremendous amount of work. So I want to thank her. So with that, I don't see any other speakers. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. Our next item is we're on to 8.2, business license bylaw housekeeping amendment to reflect updated non-medical retail cannabis policy. Good heavens, that's a mouthful. And who am I going to go for an update in regards to this?
That will be my honor. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Neo. Thank you very much.
Evening.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, sitting in Mayor. I'm not sure how to address you, Your Worship.
Acting Mayor is the appropriate term, but thank you very much.
To council, we're bringing forward a housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw to seek to align the operating hours for the cannabis retail operators in the district with the district's non-medical cannabis retail policy. And we are looking to make a minor change in the zoning bylaw to change the operating hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And as brief background, in last October, the option to change the policy and the hours in the policy was brought forward to council. And based on our analysis and enforcement data, lack of any issues identified at the time, seeking alignment with the provincial standard, which is 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and also neighboring communities' practices, council had approved the change to the policy itself. And so we are seeking the zoning bylaw change to align the two documents in time for our next cycle for licensing, basically.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is that business license bylaw 4567, 1974 amendment bylaw 8788, 2026 amendment 56 is given first reading, and that bylaw 8788 is referred to a public input opportunity. Do I have a motion, Councillor Back? Seconded by Councillor Ma.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Ma?
I second, and I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Since Nella's here, and I recognize this is a housekeeping item. I'm just curious to know how the cannabis stores are doing in this district. Any kind of significant changes or issues that we need to be aware of? Bylaw issues and
Through the chair to Councillor Ma, when we brought forward the policy in October, we looked at both enforcement data from the district and the RCMP, and there were no red flags whatsoever. We have 5 cannabis stores that are operating in the district, and that is the data that we used at the time. The rest of the terms of the policy remain the same, so there's no change in how we issue licenses to begin with. And based on that, we amended the policy. So, yep.
great, thank you.
Thank you. And just for council and the community's benefit, the public meeting is tentatively scheduled for May 25th. So if you'd like to provide input on this issue, we're tentatively scheduling May 25th, so watch our website. So I've got a mover and a seconder. Councillor Back, do you have nothing else? Your hand's still up? You're good? I have no other questions or comments. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much, council. Our next item is 8.3, and that is update Lower Mackay Creek area parking restrictions. And hello, welcome. You have a presentation. Oh, yes. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Acting Mayor Murray, members of council and the public. In April and again in July of last year, the district introduced targeted parking restrictions in the Lower Mackay Creek area to address increasing on-street parking demand, particularly the long-term parking of large and recreational vehicles that were affecting access for local businesses, their customers, and visitors. Throughout this process, the district has aimed to implement regulations that are safe, accessible, and fair for all road users, while improving parking turnover in high-demand areas. At the same time, staff have approached enforcement with care, seeking to apply regulations in a manner that is balanced and measured, while ensuring while remaining mindful of broader context, including the impacts on individuals experiencing homelessness and the availability of alternative shelter options. Staff have prepared a presentation that provides an update on parking management in the Lower Mackay area.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tay, for the introduction, and good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. As mentioned, I'll be walking you through the report being presented for information tonight, which provides an update on Council's direction to manage parking in the Lower Mackay Creek area. Council, this slide highlights key reporting milestones and actions taken over the past year to manage parking in the Lower Mackay Creek area, with continued direction from Council last summer regarding abandoned and stored vehicles, and ongoing conversations that have occurred to help effectively address the needs of community. These events have led us up to tonight's meeting, where we'll be reviewing the outcomes and impacts of the new parking restrictions in place as of September 2025, including next steps, as well as share on our progress in implementing the RV strategy. This past September, following the latest parking restrictions and subsequent enforcement in the Lower Mackay Creek area, generally highlighted here, some RVs continue to return and park within the permitted time limits, with some spillover impacts occurring in surrounding areas and neighboring communities. Just to clarify a figure in the report, the 319 tickets noted on page 4 refers to all vehicles in the area. The number of tickets issued to RVs in that time frame is 126. Community feedback received through report a problem submissions, direct emails from staff, from residents to staff and council, and input from local businesses highlights ongoing concern for vehicles that are parked beyond posted limits, traffic and safety risks, and area livability and business-related impacts, all of which are summarized on pages 4 and 5 of the report. In response to these ongoing concerns, Council identified the need for additional parking changes in the area to better manage parking demand. As next steps, as shown here on the right-hand side map and as set out in attachment 2, staff are implementing a mix of additional 2-hour, 4-hour, and no stopping restrictions that will come into effect on June 1st along portions of West 3rd Street, West 1st Street, Welch Street, and Pemberton Avenue. Vehicle owners and nearby businesses in the area received communication in early April regarding these upcoming changes, with slight amendments that have been made accordingly based on feedback we've received. Just to help situate the incoming restrictions a bit more, West 3rd Street, shown here on the left, will include new 2-hour and 4-hour parking limits, where it was previously unrestricted. Another example on the right-hand side shows where additional 4-hour and no stopping restrictions will be in place along West 1st. A number of efforts have also been made toward the implementation of the district-wide strategy, starting with parking, as the district's bylaw already provides coverage limiting 24-hour RV parking and prohibiting vehicle use as a living accommodation. Staff are focusing on curbside management measures and anticipated spillover impacts of vehicles dispersed to other areas, which will continue to be enforced by bylaw officers. Next, under the new program to manage RV parking and building on existing enforcement work, staff have updated our tools and an operating standard to address RVs found in repeat non-compliance, which may result in more immediate escalated enforcement measures. In addition, city and district staff have been coordinating the response, recognizing that the issue transcends municipal boundaries. Lastly, under advocacy, staff have connected with community partners for awareness, understanding, and collaboration on the issue, and at Council's direction, continue to advance housing projects in line with our targets. The district aims to balance the need to manage parking, address area concerns, and support those who need it. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Myself and fellow staff are available to answer any questions on the report being received for information this evening.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Councillor Bax, seconded by Councillor Ma. Just a question, given that we know that when we put these restrictions in place, there's always a shift where traffic moves into other neighborhoods. So we're very conscious of that. I'm wondering, and we also know historically that there's websites actually directing people that are tourists coming into the area as to where they can park. We've had that challenge over the years. Are we going to be keeping track of sort of the difference between some of the RVs that are there? There's obviously a component of people living rough. There's a component of people that may be working in the area. There's a component of people possibly storing vehicles. Have we been keeping track of that? Are we going to be keeping ongoing track of that going into the future? Not sure if Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, through the acting mayor. So I think this report this evening is a good demonstration of us reporting back in terms of the spillover impacts of you make one decision and you have a spillover component to that as well. And so what we've shared with the businesses as well is that this is kind of just the next phase. We're going to monitor it and see how the operations go. And if we need to, it's all about competition of curbside space. Yeah. And so if that continues, we kind of have an operational mandate to kind of look at it and see what options we have.
I know we work with the city of North Vancouver too, because on the other side of Mackay Creek, they've also in recent years implemented significant restrictions in regards to hourly parking, et cetera. Do we have any data for them in regards to their experiences and what they've done?
Through the acting mayor, in collaboration with the city, we've kind of reviewed where restrictions have impacted vehicle movement. So through conversations, we've been able to discuss where vehicles may be moving. We've noticed that in the lower Mackay Creek area in particular, the vehicles that we're seeing there are repeat vehicles, ones that are moving across shared boundaries or within the general area and returning and parking within permitted time limits.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm sure we have questions from council. Councillor Back, you're up.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. Thank you very much for the report. We've been hearing consistently from businesses down in this area of the district that they're seeing the real day-to-day challenges of the folks who are living in RVs there. And I think the parking restrictions that we put in place have helped, as we did hear from a number of them who came to council a number of months ago. But I think it's clear they haven't fully addressed the issues that are happening in that sort of concentration in that part of the district. I've met with a number of the businesses, most recently with the business owner along West First, who continues to deal with the RVs that are parking there, and certainly have compassion for the folks who are living in these RVs. And I know that there's various types of situations, but there is often a negative impact. And I think having a little bit more restriction in this area is the next reasonable step. But yeah, I do want to fully understand the sort of the broader impacts. I'm glad Councillor Murray brought up the issue of what the city is doing just on the other side of the creek. I think it's really important that we're working in alignment. And knowing where people are shifting to. I also think that it's important that we continue to offer the type of housing that people who want it have access to. And I know we're doing what we can here, but we rely on the province much of the time to help us actually get the housing built that we need. But yeah, my questions were around how closely we're working with the city. I think you kind of answered that. Where vehicles are potentially being shifted to, so we're not we're aware of where things are moving. So yeah, I'm supportive of the recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Thank you to the staff for working on this report. I think we all knew when council and district first expanded the parking time restrictions and enforced the parking bylaws along Lloyd Avenue and the surrounding areas, including the tenant center, that the RVs would scatter to areas where the signs weren't posted. As mentioned by Mr. Cohen, the spillover effect. We also know this is a complex issue, and we want to be sensitive, as Councillor Back mentioned, we want to be sensitive to the people's individual situations. However, we know that some supportive housing projects around the province has stalled for various reasons, including a projected budget deficit of 13 billion being faced by the provincial government. We can't wait for the province to get its financial house back in order and to restart funding those housing projects. Unfortunately, while coordinating with our social services on the North Shore, and I want to give a shout out to Shane at the Lookout Housing Society for their work. Unfortunately, we need to continue to enforce our bylaws in the affected areas because there are negative impacts for businesses and residents. I do have a couple of questions. I think at one time in the staff's report last year, there was a one-time count of RVs in the community. I think the number was around 75 to 78. Do we have a updated count, recent count?
Through the mayor, staff time was focused around the lower Mackay Creek area. So we do have updated count numbers, which have shown a reduction in RVs in particular that are parking in lower Mackay Creek area, but we don't have a district-wide count number.
Okay, hopefully that's some information that can be returned because we know they're going to scatter. And the last thing I want is, a reduction in Lower Mackay, but it results something else in maybe Blue Ridge or something. So if we can.
Through the mayor, if I can just add, staff have been monitoring hotspot areas. So in particular around Deep Cove and Seymour area, where we have in the past seen more vehicles moving to unrestricted on-street parking options. And in a recent count, there was also, which was in line with this report, it also showed a decreased number of vehicles that were parked in and around Deep Cove and Seymour.
I'm wondering, in terms of that number, and alluding to Acting Mayor Murray's comment about people using, I think it's iOverlander, to find places where they can potentially park their RVs for a couple of nights. I'm wondering if staff has a sense of seasonality. Are we going to see a spike come the good weather, or I'm just wondering if there's any seasonality factor in the numbers.
Through the mayor, staff, bylaw enforcement staff, including street and traffic bylaw officers and then park rangers, are sensitive to the change in seasonal fluctuations regarding temperature and the impact on extreme heat or cooling measures that need to be put in place, and also coordinating resources to provide people that may be in need of additional support during these seasonal fluctuations. So I would say that staff are absolutely aware of apps such as iOverlander and other informational inputs that can inform how they do their work and coordinate across jurisdictions as well.
Okay, thank you. And once again, to the staff, especially the ones on the front line, yourself and the bylaw officers, thank you for your efforts. I know it's not a simple issue, but we do appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mall. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Murray. Thank you, staff, for your report. Thank you to the other councillors who have spoken. I support the individual parking restrictions that are put forward, and I won't seek to micro manage those in terms of their impacts. We'll watch their impacts, and we rely on your good efforts in pursuing them. As you stated in the report, this is part of a much larger problem, homelessness in the district. And for my part, I am eager to see more action on that underlying issue. I've stated before, and I'll keep stating, I would support setting aside areas for people to live in vehicles with proper supports for sanitation, security, garbage, and so forth. It seems to me that's the way to minimize these impacts. I understand this has been done successfully in other communities and provides an alternative to homelessness for some people. That would, in my view, require provincial involvement. And I look forward to a greater sense of urgency from the provincial government. A proposal like that, I don't think it would be nearly as expensive as building social housing. It isn't going to add, I don't believe, all that significantly to our $13 or $14 billion debt rising as we go. So I'm looking forward and would call out to the provincial government to try to work with us for some cost-effective strategies to provide some immediate relief with respect to the issue of homelessness in the district. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Murray. I just have a couple questions. And report, it's a good report, and it's not an easy topic to deal with. So thank you. When you look at the coloring of all 2 hour, 4 hour, no stopping, there's a lot of little dashes. And I'm just wondering if there's been any feedback from the bylaw officers about how easily or difficult it is for them to enforce it when there's so many changes in one block.
Through the mayor, there may be additional comments to provide, but in terms of clarity around the parking restrictions, we did hear from local businesses around actually like the consistency of with which parking restrictions are being seen along the street. So that was a piece of feedback that was provided through local businesses, but bylaw enforcement officers are they have not provided any feedback in terms of it being a challenge and for their work.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other stats on the ticketing that we've done there previous to these new regulations that we brought in?
Through the mayor, just a clarifying question, stats prior to September 2025? Or
prior to the amount that you mentioned tonight?
Yes. So there was a very high volume of ticketing that was occurring around the time of the September 2025 restrictions that peaked in October. And since then, we've seen a correlating decrease in the number of ticketing alongside the number of vehicles that are in the area.
So it was quite a bit more than the 300 total, the over 300 total tickets that you talked about?
Through the mayor, the ticketing in September of 2025 and October 2025, I would say up until now, that was a greater sum in total, but not exceeding the number that's identified in the report.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. And I just want to clarify, are you finding that most of what percentage would you say are repeat offenders?
Through the mayor, feedback from our bylaw officer staff have observed that most vehicles are returning to the area, and the full suite of enforcement tools that are available are applied in each circumstance depending on the context of the violation. So staff may carry forward with enforcement or education rather, but in circumstances where they do see that it's repeat circumstance, they will proceed more quickly towards ticketing and towing.
So do you feel that the people who are repeat offenders are sort of paying attention and listening, or no, they're just still crossing the border? And
through the mayor, staff have observed that there has been a change in use in the area in terms of vehicles that are parking on the street, and that has everything to do with changing from the unrestricted time parameters to having time restrictions in place. Often, like vehicles, particularly large and recreational vehicles, would have migrated towards unrestricted areas, but they have observed a change due to the restrictions that have been put in place.
And I don't know if you can answer this. I just wanted to ask a question. The ICBC empty lot that's down there, the old repair facility there. I know that we were trying to ask the province to see if we could get anything done about sort of either fencing it off or cleaning it up, because people were letting their dogs run there. They were hanging clotheslines and things like that. Do you have any other further updates on that?
Through the mayor, staff are in constant contact with the ICBC site and the operations surveillance manager there. So they have discussed the fencing to be put in place. It has not yet, just because staff are regularly visiting the area, including district staff, but also ICBC staff. So to this point in time, those measures have worked to mitigate any misuse of the property so far. So, and any other bylaw enforcement issues such as off-leash dogs, or if there is waste that's there, have been addressed through that staff to staff relationship and communication. So there's
great. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Mr. Milburn.
Thank you. Just for the chair, to respond to the first question from Councillor Forbes, which was about the ease of enforcement, I can say with certainty from the officers in the field that having the recommended time restrictions to 1, 2, and 4 hour and no parking areas clearly signed are much easier to enforce than just the general rules for 24 or 72 hours. They're set out in bylaw. And the reason is when you have those kinds of time frames, people often they'll actually move back and forth in a coordinated way from block to block and have that opportunity. And so staff are constantly tracking over longer periods of time, which is actually administratively more challenging. Having shorter periods of time, we find in consultation with business is better for circulation and turnover for those businesses. And then also is an ease for staff to ensure that those parking spaces are available for users as opposed to folks that are just trying to circumvent and get around the general rules. So I just, in summation, it is easier. What we're recommending is much easier to enforce, which is why we're recommending it. Thank you.
Mr. Milburn, is there any update that you can give us in regards to, I mean, it's along the same topic, but just in regards to, or Mr. Fox, in regards to Bowser Island? Yeah, got your tongue? Oh, do you want me to help you with that?
Hello?
Okay, there you go.
It's working. It goes black all the time.
Yeah, okay.
It takes me a while. Through the chair, administration has been in touch with MO, our Ministry of Transportation and Transit, and they are working with other provincial agencies to coordinate a time on the Bowser Island situation. So as we get more information, we will update council as soon as we can and the public with any information that we can provide.
I think there are similarities, obviously, with the ICBC site and the provincial property that encapsulates the Bowser Island area off the highway. And, you know, I think there are possibly two areas that are treated a little bit differently, and it would be nice if there was a more consistency. I did want to, Ms. Oswald, thank you very much for your report and the details, and you're very, you're obviously very connected to this because the responses were very clear and concise, and I really appreciate that. I just also want to say to staff, we know that these issues dealing with these kinds of situations, there's a variety of different situations down there, especially bylaw staff, engineering and traffic staff that are going down there and trying to manage this, working with our neighbors, the city of North Van and all the agencies. Lookout has spoken about. They do incredible work. It's a very challenging issue to deal with. And we're grateful for the time and the work and the detailed response in regards to our direction. These are very complex and challenging times, and there's no easy solution to any of it. It's sad that we're having to see some of this exist in our communities. Years ago, we would never have thought that, and it's at times horrific. And we do have to find that balance as councillors have spoken about. So thank you so much for your work and just continuing that update, watching those numbers. And I think it's really important to have a really close connection with the city of North Vancouver because these kinds of issues they don't know boundaries. And we have to understand the experiences of the city. And we share our experiences with them and we work together to try to find a middle ground and a balance. So appreciate that. So I have a mover and a seconder, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much, staff, and thank you, councillors, for your comments. And now we are on to the next item, Madam Clerk, is, tell me what that is, because I'm flipping between my agenda. Oh, the resident, yes. Oh, here we go. Hold on just a sec. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Residential tenant relocation assistance bylaw, clarification on eligible tenants. And this was a report returned in regards to some questions that I believe I asked. So this report is that the February 9th, 2026 report of the community planner entitled Residential Tenant Relocation Assistance Bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Have a nice evening. Clarification on eligible tenants is received for information. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Ma and seconded by myself. Thank you. It's on the floor. Do we have staff comments, Mr. Milburn?
Thank you through the chair. Just very briefly, a very important concern was raised by council members and council as a whole with respect to ensuring that eligible tenants, those who could receive benefits of tenant relocation assistance, was focused on the residents themselves and not on individuals who maybe had signed an initial rental contract, but maybe were no longer residents within the unit. So staff did a thorough assessment looking at legal review of this information and felt that the way the bylaw was structured, that it indeed met council's objectives for ensuring that it was the tenants residing in the unit that would receive the benefits. So this is a report is simply a confirmation of that fact, and staff look forward to implementing council's direction to ensure that the right tenants and those that are living in the units do receive the benefits that are due to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milburn. Councillor Ma, any further comments in regards to this item?
Yes, thank you for the update. Yeah, we've talked about it on a number of items. You know, there's a ongoing lack of affordable housing, and I think people are finding ways to cope with that, and some of that is going to be co-housing or shared accommodation or having roommates. So, you know, I'm glad we're recognizing the residents as opposed to just the person that signs the lease. I think that's important because we need to ensure that people are compensated should they be required to move due to redevelopment. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the clarification as well. The devil's in the details with these kinds of things. And, you know, many of the people that live in existing older rental units that are potentially up for redevelopment, you know, their families have changed over the years. They may have lived there for 20, 30 years and their families changed, and whoever signed the lease way back when may not, you know, may be deceased or may not be part of the family, but the rest of the family still lives there. So we just did want to confirm that and make sure that there was some clarity around the people that are living there are the ones that get to stay there regardless of whether or not their name was on the original lease. So thank you. I don't see any other questions or comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Our next item is Building Safer Communities Fund Youth Friendly North Shore Final Report. Ms. Branson, welcome. Yes. Oh, and we have, yes. Okay. You guys have little indicators here that I can see, but that's okay. Hands are good too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Comments. Lovely. Thank you. Carry on.
So the report before you this evening provides an update on Youth-Friendly North Shore Initiative. This initiative was delivered through the federal Building Safer Communities Fund, which was provided the district with nearly $1.8 million to support a 3-year youth safety, wellness, and crime prevention plan from 2023 to 2026. While the district was the funding recipient, the work was led by implementation partners from Bunyad Public Affairs and undertaken as a collaborative North Shore-wide initiative with City of North Vancouver, District of West Vancouver, Squamish Nation, Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and the RCMP. This reflects the reality that youth move seamlessly across jurisdictional boundaries and that effective service delivery requires a coordinated sub-regional approach. Staff have prepared a presentation outlining the key outcomes of the initiative, along with recommendations to sustain this momentum and continue strengthening how youth are supported across the North Shore. And with that, I'll turn the floor to Ms. Branson.
Thank you for those excellent opening comments. I appreciate that. Very well done. Ms. Branson.
Okay. Oops, there we go. Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is Erica Branson, Community Planner with the District of North Vancouver. To sit closer to this.
It's because you're tall.
I know. So this presentation will provide an overview of the youth-friendly North Shore activities, the outcomes and key learnings that inform the recommendations that are before you tonight, this evening. All photos included in this presentation were taken as part of the project. So Building Safer Communities Fund supports safer, more inclusive communities by helping young people, especially those at higher risk, before challenges escalate, and by creating places where they feel connected and supported. The name Youth Friendly North Shore reflects the strong local partnership behind this work and its focus on community-based preventative supports. This work was organized into two main streams: youth-friendly spaces that were focused on creating and enhancing places where young people feel safe, welcome, and included, and strengthening the system of care were activities that focused on improving the coordination between services so that youth and families can access the right supports at the right time. Across both streams, 11 activities were delivered that strengthen youth inclusion and belonging, improve access to safe spaces, and build a more connected service system. Stream 1 included 4 activities. Welcome Me youth action teams were recruited each year to assess how welcoming public and agency spaces feel to youth. A key finding was that staff and peer interactions strongly influence youth experiences, with negative interactions with staff discouraging and preventing youth from returning. In response, this project created 5 short training videos to help staff create more welcoming environments. Overall, Welcome Me strengthened inclusion by involving youth directly and turning their feedback into tools and resources. Youth Action Grants supported 7 youth-led projects that grew out of Welcome Me. These projects partnered youth with community organizations to run activities such as music and arts activities, sports, and other recreation. For example, youth hosted an intergenerational gaming event, and an arts event helped to create a teen space mascot at the City of North Vancouver Library. These grants demonstrated that small, flexible funding combined with youth leadership and mentorship can strengthen engagement, partnerships, and youth-led programs. A late-night recreation pilot helped to address gaps in evening and weekend programming, including limited opportunities for after hours and also on Sundays. 6 organizations delivered low-barrier recreation programs on weekends between the hours of 7 and 11 p.m. over the winter months under a shared youth-friendly North Shore banner. Examples included a 4-on-4 basketball night and a live performance night with open mic. The pilot provided safe, accessible spaces during high-need times and tested ways to improve outreach and participation. Overall, it showed strong demand and confirmed the value of coordinated late-night recreation. 3 additional opportunities were also explored to expand low-barrier recreation for youth. While none of these moved forward, several key learnings did emerge. Sustainable youth programming requires dedicated leadership, stable funding, and consistent access to space, and that short-term grant funding is not sufficient for these initiatives as they require time to build partnerships, to secure and retain staff, and to establish consistent programming that youth can rely on and trust will continue. Stream 2 focused on strengthening the system of care for youth and included 7 activities, including a youth services community of practice. The COP was established as a quarterly forum to address gaps in knowledge, capacity, and relationships, bringing together professionals working with youth aged 12 to 18. It provided practical, evidence-based tools to support community-based programming and positive development across the North Shore. 9 sessions engaged 120 staff from 30 plus organizations, with about 30% attending multiple sessions that demonstrated the sustained interest. The COP strengthened cross-agency connections, improved referral pathways, and supported frontline staff through shared learning. It demonstrated a sustainable, low-cost model with strong interest in continuing, and future sessions could be informed by the data that will emerge from the youth situation table. Situation tables support individuals facing complex, high-risk circumstances through coordinated cross-sector intervention. Funded by the province, the model brings together frontline staff from health, social services, public safety, and education to respond quickly to elevated risk. The district secured funding for 2 North Shore tables, a youth table led by the school district North Vancouver School District, and an adult table to be led by the RCMP. The youth table onboarding and training has complete, and the table launched last week on Tuesday. The adult table is planned to follow later this year. The model enables timely collaboration, appropriate information sharing, and rapid connection to supports. It also generates data to identify trends to help inform planning, strengthen coordination, and supporting faster, more informed responses for those at highest risk. A new evaluation tool was developed and piloted with municipally funded organizations delivering youth outreach, social, cultural, and recreation programs to better understand the current youth services landscape. The evaluation produced individual organizational reports and a summary report for the municipal funders. Several recommendations have already been implemented, including the late night recreation pilot discussed earlier in this presentation, and an online youth users trends audit that will be discussed next. Overall, the evaluation provided a practical tool to support ongoing system improvement and coordination. The project found that many young people are unaware of the available programs and services due to gaps in online communication. To better understand this, research on youth online behavior was combined with an audit of 21 municipally funded websites, resulting in individual reports and a consolidated summary for the district. Findings showed that effective communication requires clear, current, and accessible information alongside engaging design. While youth primarily use platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, websites remain important for credible information. Over 20 recommendations were identified, including fixing broken links, better promotion of free programs, and using role-based staff listings to keep the information up to date. A set of HR training videos was developed to improve how staff engage with young people in safe, respectful, and effective ways. Available on the district's website, this resource supports consistent practice and strengthens long-term capacity through reusable onboarding tools. Youth feedback also highlighted that communications often did not reflect the diversity and lived experience of North Shore youth. In response, a youth photo image bank was created using local youth photographed in settings across the North Shore. This collection will be available to government partners and the participating organizations for non-commercial use. It supports more authentic representation, will enhance engagement, and create a greater sense of belonging for youth. Modernizing and aligning youth policies across jurisdictions was also discussed throughout this project. Exploring a tri-municipal youth policy that could bring the 3 municipalities together under a shared framework and updating policy language to reflect current evidence-based approaches, including the Positive Youth Development Framework, was discussed. This work would support more coordinated and consistent youth service delivery across the North Shore and strengthen collaboration between the municipalities. In summary, the Youth Friendly North Shore initiative demonstrated the value of a coordinated, preventative-focused approach to supporting youth. It increased youth inclusion and voice, expanded access to safe programs, and strengthened collaboration among youth-serving organizations. It also built lasting capacity through shared tools and training that will continue beyond the grant. This final report provides a roadmap for future action with recommendations before you tonight that focus on policy alignment, program coordination, capacity building, and youth participation. Key opportunities include modernizing youth policies, continuing those low barrier programming, sustaining the community of practice, and supporting youth engagement through small funding opportunities. Overall, these recommendations aim to sustain the momentum, strengthen coordination, and support youth safety, well-being, and belonging across the North Shore. Thank you, and staff is here as well as representation from Bunyad for questions as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'll move it. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Pope? Thank you very much for that very extensive piece of work. Appreciate it. We've, talked about the issues around our youth for many years. We talk about a youth center. We've talked about that for many years up in Lynn Valley. I can't help but reflect back to when we were talking at one point in this community about closing schools. There was the Matrix report that came forward to councils many, many years ago, talking about how, the rise of population was slowing. There were fewer young people coming into our community. And there was a position that was being taken by the school district to actually close schools. And they rightfully saw in their wisdom to take schools that maybe weren't at capacity and lease them to other, denominational education facilities, Lionsgate Christian Academy, Kenneth Gordon down in Maplewood. And now we see that trend has changed dramatically, where we've have schools that are already at capacity and some beyond. I know when Dorothy Linus was built in the Seymour, the day the doors opened, it was over capacity. So it fluctuates. It's a great amount of work. I'm wondering, ongoing funding. I noticed in the report, the district signed an updated contribution agreement with the federal government for $1.8 million in 2023, following the development of youth-friendly North Shore Work Plan. Funding was reimbursed biannually each fiscal year upon completion of the work reporting, including non-financial reports, cash flow statements, and general ledger sampling. Can you just elaborate on that amount of money? And then what we're looking forward, because there's always a need for money, there's always a need for funding, and what opportunities and thoughts can you share with us in regards to those issues?
Yeah, thank you. So through the acting mayor we have extended the contribution agreement with Public Safety Canada for 1 additional year. There hasn't been new funding offered, but my sense is once the final reports are provided back to Public Safety Canada on April 30th, if there is another site that had a surplus, potentially there could be additional dollars made available to other sites that have taken the opportunity to extend their contribution agreements. So no new dollars yet, but we do have an opportunity should funding be available. In terms of the requests in front of you tonight and the recommendations, there isn't a request for new dollars. I think for one of them as an example, looking at the small grants, I think that there's opportunities within some of our existing programs like the community building grant, where we could expand or broaden the language to make it more appealing to youth, so you see themselves reflected in those opportunities. So that community building fund is the one that does the block parties and the neighborhood newsletters, little libraries. It's all about building connection, building relationships and community. So I think that that would be an opportunity where we could adjust some of that language just to see, so that youth can see themselves better represented there. But there isn't an ask in these recommendations for new dollars. And I think that the communities of practice, those participating organizations, they are all funded through through the district's core funded social service agreements. So we could be working with them with the existing funding there for us to be able to keep some of that going.
Awesome. I'm reflecting on my son, who's going to be 19 in August. But when he was, 16, 17, their lives are so different from what we experienced as young people. And there really was like this lack of, destination for them to go to, especially in the winter time. And he's quite entrepreneurial and would reach out to local establishments because in many local establishments, as a young person, you can now go into those establishments up until 8 o'clock. And he would suggest to management, if you got a pool table, we'd come in and buy pizza from you and, order soft drinks and just play pool so we could be inside in the wintertime. And it's that kind of connection and those kinds of partnerships within our existing community. I also reflect on sort of the change of many establishments within our community right now. The happening place in this community is the Lynn Valley Legion. It is a busy place where people are gathering. There's other establishments up the street, the Queen's Cross. They are creating event nights and trivia nights and places where families can come and take part in dinner and, gather. And, because of how the regulations have changed, young people can go in and take part in these kinds of activities as well. It's a different level of partnership. And of course, it's appropriate for one group of young people and maybe not necessarily appropriate for another. But I think it's that thinking outside the box and being creative and having some trust. And it's an amazing amount of work. Appreciate it. Lots of recommendations in the resolution. So we're going to look at that carefully. I'm going to go to Councillor Pope as the seconder. And then I've got a full lineup of council and questions. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the work that's been put into this, but I'm afraid I'm going to be quite critical in my remarks. We've spent nearly $2 million over 3 years under the Building Safer Communities Fund. And to be fair, some of the pilot projects that have been done sound positive. An open mic and jam night, a late night recreation pilot. These are exactly the kinds of things that can help engage youth. But where is the plan? Where are the clear, actionable strategies that will make a difference on the front lines for troubled youth? Instead, what we have is a 121-page report that concludes the work has been successful in advancing youth safety and wellness. So I have to ask, how is success being measured here? Has youth involvement in gangs declined? Have we reduced youth drug use? Has even one young person been diverted from engaging in criminal activity? Have suicide rates improved? Are fewer youth ending up in crises or at the youth safe house or on the downtown east side? Because those are the outcomes that matter. And we are facing very real and escalating challenges here on the North Shore and across the world, really, with youth mental health, which is under immense strain. Suicide and self-harm are rising among youth. Drug addiction is impacting younger populations, and youth unemployment is at concerningly high levels. Even if the North Shore doesn't have high youth crime rates compared to the rest of Metro Vancouver, these types of issues directly undermine community safety and health. And yet, after 3 years, we don't have clear, actionable strategies to address them. What we have is engagement summaries, website audits, recommendations like fixing broken links and adding subtitles to increase youth engagement online. That is not a $2 million outcome. We also know from the report itself that 62% of organizations can't implement these recommendations due to lack of staff time, and 39% lack the budget for expertise. So we've effectively funded ideas that community organizations cannot deliver, which confirms you can spend $1 million on engagement and come up with a bunch of lofty ideas, but with no grounding in common sense, they're worthless. And that's a fundamental disconnect. So I come back to the core question, what have we actually achieved with $2 million? Because what I see is a missed opportunity. We could have invested directly in expanding youth programming, mental health supports, addiction prevention, safe supervised spaces for young people. And instead we have funded process, reports, administrative staff, and over outcomes. And I think our community expects and deserves better. So I do not support this work continuing. I think we can do better. I would like to see action for $2 million at the end of 3 years. And those are my comments.
Ms. Branson, is there any thing you can offer in regards to those comments?
Yes, so through the acting mayor to Councillor Pope. So the Building Safer Communities Fund, there were different communities that were chosen. When the district was chosen to be a recipient, we did look at the opportunity and really decided intentionally to focus on prevention. And the prevention focus, and also on activities that had an opportunity to be sustainable. Because what we do see sometimes is that when you have funding that comes into a community, if there isn't that long-term vision, then similar to what's happening in New West at the moment with their Building Safer Communities Fund, is they've created a youth hub and there isn't ongoing funding. And now they're in a bit of a conundrum in terms of who's going to pick that up. So we did intentionally look at activities within our work plan where we could be working with the partners that deliver youth outreach and deliver youth services that are currently funded by the municipalities, and helped them do the work that they do better and differently to respond to youth in 2026. So some of those key things was doing the youth evaluation and creating a youth evaluation tool, excuse me, that we worked with those agencies so they could look at how they're doing the work that they're doing and do it better. It was really well received. They each had their own report and they've started to make those changes in how they're doing things. And those are the agencies that we do fund through the youth services, the core funded social service agencies. So we can continue to work with them and change their practice or be able to have, or for them to respond. And let's say as an example, move ahead with some of the late night recreation opportunities where they have staff that's currently funded and maybe they're switching the hours or working with some of the partnerships. Another that I would say in terms of intervention was the establishment of the situation table. So the youth situation table is an intervention. I mean, I guess it's a prevention and an intervention. That was an activity within Building Safer Communities that we explored the need and the interest of having a situation table. And then we did apply for the grant to be able to establish them, and it was successful. So we had 100,000 that was provided to community to establish the 2 tables. But that was an activity, again, that was identified within the work plan of Building Safer Communities to see, because we thought that, again, would be one where there would be a future to it. It would live on past that 3-year period. I think that I'm just looking at my notes as well. Another that I would say is the opportunity to look at our existing youth policies. We have really strong policies, but they haven't been looked at in almost 20 years. So it's now is the time for us to be able to look at them. We've brought all these partners to the table. We have the other municipalities. We have the nations that are engaged. We have the libraries engaged. We have all of these different stakeholders that have come together on this project. So while we don't have something new or different, we've strengthened the system that really, in my opinion, needed a bit of a stop time to be able to do things different and better. And so that would be my comments.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to recognize that because we haven't looked at a lot of these policies in the last 20 years, that we had to look at them to make sure what was working, what wasn't working, how we could advance them going forward as well. It is a lot of money. I recognize that it's a lot of money, and there's obviously going to need more money to come in regards to some of these initiatives. But without understanding the framework first and making sure those gaps are filled as best we can fill them, it's hard to move forward. Have we reached out to organizations beyond our sort of natural partnerships, like the local mountains, local businesses like Deep Cove Kayak, Capilano Suspension Bridge? Is there a piece of this where we've reached out to those operators and businesses too, to engage with them with these initiatives that we're looking at?
We haven't looked at private partnerships.
Is there an opportunity to look at that?
I would
I would say there's always an opportunity.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that we have a willingness from the stakeholders that have been involved in this project to continue the momentum. And with that momentum, there's opportunity to see who else to bring in order to make some of that work continue.
Awesome. So we'll go to Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to my council colleagues for their comments. Just following on from Councillor Pope's comments, 1.77951951, almost $1.8 million is a lot of money. And I too, and I do thank Councillor Pope for raising the issues that she did, because I did also wonder about the value that was provided by that significant sum of money. But I'll leave it at that because I'm not sure I can say much more than that. I did read the report carefully. I read the Bunyad report carefully. And I'm just going to ask about one area, and that's in the report, both reports, there's discussion about late night recreation programming. And can you expand on that and this community need? Why is it important? What is being considered? And I guess put simply, why are we talking about creating late night activities for youth? Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So through the acting mayor to Councillor Hanson, the late night recreation pilot was one of the pieces that was identified in both the youth evaluation, the service evaluation, and also had been part of the evidence review in the beginning as we were developing the work plan. There was a sort of a heat map done to say, we looked at where is youth programming happening and at what hours is youth programming happening. And what we noticed is that was very limited late night or even weekend, or I think there was nothing actually happening for youth on Sundays. And then when we were connecting with youth and getting feedback from youth, that was one of the areas that that was something that they were asking for, is a place to go, you know, that is when they're out of school, whether it's a youth center or an opportunity for a sport or a late night music jam, but places to go. So we had an opportunity to pilot the youth, the late night recreation. We did it over this last sort of the winter months when it's, you know, the darkest time of the year. And there were 6 agencies that came out, and I think there was 12 activities that took place. And we did actually do a summary report on that one to show and to demonstrate that it's not an expensive endeavor. You know, it's, sorry, let me. Just to be clear, I think it was. Sorry.
Okay, take your time. Do you have it?
I do.
Okay.
That's the full report, but I actually printed just the one page. Oh, there it is. So the appendix 1 that did the list of all of the events, you know, you'll see there's 11 events that took place. It was in partnership with the District of West Vancouver's youth services, the nonprofits that we're funding through the municipality. And yeah, it was a nice array. It was marketed under the same brand. You know, so we've spoken with the District of West Vancouver and also with even NVRC to say, like, how can we continue to brand some of these activities so that the youth across the region are able to see something, you know, and they're not seeing something that's just, oh, this is a North Shore Neighborhood House thing. This is a Lynn Valley Services Society thing. They're actually seeing, this is a youth-friendly North Shore. Like, I know what that is. It's been branded as that. And they're able to know that it's a safe place.
It's going to have staff, it's going to have food, it's going to have Wi-Fi, and it's a place that they can go with their friends. So I think we've done sort of that proof of concept that we can get there. It's not an expensive endeavor. I think, these are agencies that are funded by us. It's a matter of coming together and coordinating and agreeing to do it in that same model.
Councillor Hanson, good?
Thank you.
Councillor Ma. Oh, I'm sorry. No, sorry. Councillor Babb.
Thank you.
Wrong line on the
Acting
screen.
Mayor.
Putting my glasses on. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Acting Mayor, and thank you very much for the report. This was a lot of work, and I want to acknowledge that this was a lot of work over a few years. It does come with a price tag, and I too look at that number and go, that's an awfully big budget. But I feel like there was a lot of work that did take a lot of time to do. And I think, creating safe, accessible spaces and programming for youth is foundational. And it's really, truly needed in our community. Going forward, I share the sentiment of Councillor Pope in that I do want to see more action-oriented things. And, hopefully we can see these ideas come forward on a fairly regular basis. So I see the importance of aligning our policies, our youth service policies across the North Shore as well. So hopefully through that work, there will be some more actions that come out of it. I guess in terms of the sustainable funding piece of it, you sort of alluded to the fact you're not asking for additional funding at this time, but what do you think it would cost to fund the key actions in this report? Like, as in terms of the sustainable, like, is it even in the realm of possibility?
Yeah. So through your acting mayor to Councillor Beck, there wasn't a request for new funding. Because I think that it's possible to achieve this without new funding. Mm-hmm. I think that this grant opportunity allowed us to stop time a little bit mm-hmm. and bring together all those stakeholders and reimagine what was possible and, sort of set a course for what we could be committed to moving ahead with those that are at the table. I think, there are other small little grant opportunities that I have ideas on. Maybe it would be helpful to have a little bit of money to help with updating the youth policies, but staff can do that in partnership with the other municipal staff. We can get there. I think if there, were to be an ask of something, I would say, I think the district is very gracious and generous to the nonprofits that we fund through those core funded social service agencies. But they could always use more funding. So I don't think it would be an ask of this specifically. I would say that it really comes down to when we come forward in January with the report for those organizations that are core funded to do the work that they do in community. So that's Capilano Community Services, the Neighborhood House, Lynn Valley Services Society, Parkgate Society, those are those organizations. And that's one of the recommendations within is for us to be looking at those service levels, looking at where we're funding, and looking at that involvement and sort of having all that information to say, is this enough? Is this, is it equitable? Is it, is it fair for what we're doing across the region? That is one of those recommendations. But at this time, I think we're able to do this with the funding that we have currently.
Okay. Thank you very much for that response. Were there some gaps that were identified, like geographically across the district when you're looking at when this work was happening? And what if you could comment on that? Like, are you seeing less services in the Seymour area versus other areas, that type of thing?
Yeah. So through your acting mayor to Councillor Beck, I would say that, when we looked at, or the youth services evaluation, Lynn Valley would have been one of the areas that had been identified a little bit more as a gap. And I would say one of the reasons for that is that there is no dedicated youth center. So when we're looking at, Parkgate does have a youth space. Capilano Community Services does youth services out of Lionsgate. We just don't, there isn't that same infrastructure. The district does fund 2 youth outreach workers for Lynn Valley that is hosted by the North Shore Neighborhood House, but there isn't that space where youth know that this is where I'm going to, there isn't the physical space. So we did fund through this project a small bit of money to help Lynn Valley Services Society continue to look at their role in potentially providing staffing or additional youth programming similar to what could be offered in a youth center. And that work at this time is still ongoing.
Thank you. And just my final question in terms of ongoing engagement with youth in the district. One of the motions I brought forward during the last term of council was a youth and younger adults advisory committee. Ultimately, it didn't get supported. But was this ever looked at, this type of thing, in terms of an ongoing connection to youth, so that we can have regular feedback on different ideas that actually affect from the people that it actually affects?
Yeah. Thank you through the acting mayor to Councillor Back. Having a youth committee or a council is always an interesting one. In my opinion, I think if there isn't, depending on what the purpose of it is, I think youth can be brought together in many different ways to get their feedback on a specific topic. So whether or not we need a committee per se that's meeting, if there's no purpose for them to be meeting, then I'm not sure whether that type of a committee, you'd really have to think through what the vision or purpose of the committee would be. My preference would be to, look at the policies or the existing committees and see, how can you make them more inviting for youth to be a part of them? Why would they see themselves or not see themselves to join, let's say, the Community Services Advisory Committee or the Heritage Committee or whatever committee it might be? And then otherwise, if there's specific projects or tasks or ideas that are happening at the municipality, then is figuring out, what youth or how do you want to engage youth, and going to them and asking for their feedback and their opinions in ways that are going to sort of meet them in their ways, rather than potentially creating a committee.
Thank you. That's great feedback. And one of my favorite events of the year is our Youth Awards, which are coming up in May. I would be interested in looking at other events that we can have throughout the year, rather than just one event a year formally with youth in the community, but other events that we can maybe engage around certain topics. But anyway, thank you very much for the report and all the work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Ma.
Are you sure?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't even have my glasses on, but I know you're next.
Thank you, Erica. I note in the report that it mentions that there's a relatively low level of youth crime on the North Shore. And I also agree with the comment that we need to be vigilant and proactive to prevent a potential increase in youth-related crimes. To me, focusing on prevention is a valid high-level strategy. I agree that measurable results are needed, but having been a long-time volunteer with various youth organizations, I can say sometimes the benefit is not immediate, and it takes time to come to fruition. I was a big brother for 19 years, and I had 4 littles, 4 different boys that I was their big brother. My first one I had for 7 years, and then he got into some trouble. But after about 20, 30 years, we reconnected. And by all definitions, he's a contributing member to society. But, he lives in Seattle. And he thanked me for the time that we spent together. When we left, honestly, I thought I failed him because he got into trouble. But some of the things that we did together, he remembered even after 30 years. I don't want to get into this because it's about me, but sometimes things take time to show results. We need to invest in our youth. And I believe there's a cumulative effect of all the programs, but it may not happen right away. Yes, it's a lot of money, but spending money on youth is worthwhile. I do have a couple of questions. How long on average are youth in the program? Like, is there much turnover from year to year? Is people coming and going from the program?
Through your acting mayor to count, could you clarify for which program specifically?
Sorry, just in general, like, do you track the number of youth that are registered in the programs to know where the numbers are and stuff?
So through this project, we did not track any of the youth, or we did not track. No.
Okay. I see that I think this youth-friendly North Shore, the age is from 12 to 18.
Yes.
What happens after? Like, are there other programs that the participants are referred to when they age out?
Yeah. So through your acting mayor to Councillor Ma, Youth Friendly North Shore did focus on 12 to 18, but there are a lot of programs and services across the North Shore where their program boundaries are further. So, there are many, I would say, usually go up to 24. But again, depending on the project or depending on the program, the service, who the funder is. But I would just say our focus was on 12 to 18 to provide our own parameters, but there's a lot of services that would go beyond the 18 in across the North Shore.
And is there a connection or is there some bridging help for the youth to move on to maybe the next appropriate program?
Yes, I would say yes. And as an example, let's say for the situation table. So the situation table, when you're having youth, children and youth, or even families, there will be opportunities to bridge. If there's somebody that comes in, depending on what that case is or that circumstance is, that could go to the adult table. And similar with other programs and services, if somebody, if somebody were to present at let's say Family Services of the North Shore, and they have a program that were to extend to children to 18. They would probably look to what are the other services that are similar for young adults and make those referrals to other services. So I would say that throughout this project, while there are probably gaps for kids that age out, I would say most programs and services do a good job of finding where that bridge is or where those other services are if they have existing clients in a program.
Okay. To me, the key to assisting youth through the challenges they're facing in this stage of their lives is meaningful engagement in ways that is valuable to them. They have to define it. Every youth is different and we need to have different programs for them. I know that we've made funds available for youth activities in Lynn Valley. There's also even some local programs, the community initiative tonight, Carson Graham. It's the program's organized by Rob Olson. He's the teacher. He's helped students to become more engaged in the community. And the program is, the youth take a leadership role in how the program rolls out. Youth need to be engaged and kept busy. And I'm very supportive of the diverse programs mentioned in the youth-friendly North Shore. I do want to take this opportunity to thank the federal government and other funders for this because it is a significant amount of money. But we need to invest in our youth. So I support the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mao. Councillor Hampson, second time? No, you're good. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a couple of quick points I just wanted to mention. The Parkgate youth activities at Parkgate I've been told from parents up there that it's successful because it's supervised and not in a bad way, not like overlord, but there's an adult, there's somebody there. And so that is something that Lynn Valley doesn't have. It doesn't have the place, it doesn't have the supervision. It may have the youth workers, but it really doesn't attract, and they've got nowhere to go. So I think supervision, and that goes to your point too, Councillor Ma, that we really need to be vigilant when we start offering services. Otherwise, we could lose control very easily. The other thing is, I just wanted to mention, before I was a councillor and I was on a few committees, we made a point of, on those committees, we made a point of enlisting high school students as members of those committees. And sadly, what we found out was that they have their own schedule of things that they have to get done. And so they either had a busy week of homework or they had exams coming up and they were studying. So it was kind of a hit and miss to get them involved in a regular committee, like you say. So I totally agree with you that we have to meet them with what they're interested in, not say, oh, we're having a committee meeting this night, come to this committee meeting. They've just got their own lives to live, and that's not something that will really draw them in. There was another point, but I didn't write it down and I've forgotten. Anyway, I enjoyed the report. It's very thorough, and thank you very much. And I think you're on the right track. And I hope you get some funding and some resources, or you can figure out that framework to keep it going. Thank you.
Sir Forbes. We need a plan, and this is the plan. And we need to understand where we are, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And this is a significant amount of work, an extensive amount of work that's going to help us get there, and knit all those connections together so we know where we stand. We're looking across the North Shore as well, because youth do not know borders. And that's the great thing about our community. It also takes a village, and we're all part of that village. And I know that there's this need to find that tangibility, that place for them to go in a building. If I look at Parkgate replaced Deep Cove Stage. That's how that started. Deep Cove Stage, a little place that held guide meetings and brownies and everything in between. It was a community hall. It had, dances. It was all encompassing, a little tiny wooden shack in a park off Panorama Drive. And then it turned into Parkgate. But a great draw for youth before that building was built, with everything that was fancy about it, was the old washroom with quite a large area, changing room in Myrtle Park. And it was a youth center that a local youth worker ran. My father donated a billiard table to it. And that's where the kids went at night. And in the summer, there were youth workers there. And it was a great place to hang out. And so sometimes it just has to be something as simple as that. When Councillor Back was talking about the committee that he wanted to create in order to sort, can we turn off the flashing light? I know I'm running out of time, but I just want to finish this. When he was talking about that committee that he wanted to form and there was no support for it, I do think there's an opportunity to create something. There's a youth table and an adult table, and maybe there's a place for us to come together as councillors and look at opportunities where we bring in the private sector of our community and we talk to them about what opportunities exist, because I think there's lots of them. We have lots of facilities. We have Deep Cove Yacht Club in the Cove. That's a facility. We've got lots of organizations that want to give back and to help youth, and they've done that for decades in their existence. And I think engaging with them is something that we need to look at and address going forward to see what opportunities may exist. Because we're all in this together, and they're our future. And I think in making it, taking this information and looking at it from a broader community perspective and sharing it with our community going forward. I think there's going to be lots of great ideas that come forward and opportunities that we may not understand now, but may be very realistic in the future. I've triggered some comments. Councillor Ma.
Thank you for sharing. I fully understand that, you know, it's for the money we receive, and we want to measure results. Like I mentioned earlier, this is about the youth. So I don't want to talk about myself, but I want to share this little snippet about a guy named Guy Felicella. I'm just going to read from his website. For over 30 years, Guy was involved in a cycle of gang involvement, addictions, and treatment and incarceration. 30 years. Through a combination of personal determination and support of others, particularly harm reduction and recovery services, Guy survived. Nearly 20 years of homelessness, multiple life-threatening bone infections, and 6 overdoses. Today, Guy lives in long-term recovery with 13 years of sobriety. He resides with his wife and 3 children. I think most of us know who Guy is. And the reason I bring this up is sometimes it takes, for people that are down a challenging path, sometimes it takes a lot of time and support to get a person through that. I agree, you know, I met Guy, he's an amazing person, and, you know, he's probably an outlier, but the point I'm trying to make is it does require an investment in our services and investment of those services for the youth. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Ma. Well, I think we've had a really good discussion. Thank you so much for the work. Thank you for the work in regards to the document. And we're going to share it. We're going to continue to talk about it. We're going to continue to look at these recommendations and work through them. And it's an exciting time. And thank you again. So we see the recommendations up on the screen, 8.5. We've got the mover and seconder. I'm going to call the question on this motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now we're on to 8.6, advocacy to the province on the 2027 BC budget. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. I will move the motion to advocate to the province on the 2027 provincial budget. And I also want to add a bullet point to the motion, which I believe the clerk has to put up on the screen, in the second paragraph under scope, where it says, and that council define the scope of the presentation to include, here's the part I wanted to add, funding for a new crossing to the North Shore and immediate funding for bus rapid transit.
And that's seconded by Councillor Hanson.
It is, yeah.
Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm bringing this motion forward as a practical step toward strengthening how we advocate to the province. This motion in itself is a really small action to advocate for greater funding for the District of North Vancouver on our priority issues. It's not a complete strategy, but it's an important, concrete action. And essentially, it's about participating in the province's annual budget consultation through the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. The committee is made up of MLAs from both government and opposition, and it hears directly from local governments across BC and produces recommendations that inform the provincial budget. And so this is one of the few formal opportunities we have to put our priorities in front of the decision makers before funding decisions are made. So if we're serious about advocacy, this is where we need to be. The scope of our presentation is important and should include funding for a new crossing to the North Shore and immediate funding for bus rapid transit. Also, improving funding for affordable housing, allowing North Shore residents to defer their utility bills, fair distribution of North Shore wastewater treatment plant costs, and changes to the Ports Property Tax Act. Let me say a few words about the first item regarding transportation funding at the risk of stating the obvious. Congestion and traffic problems surrounding the Ironworkers Bridge is one of the most pressing issues and biggest irritants for people in North Van. A new bridge that includes SkyTrain and public transit is not just a transportation project, it is a regional, economic, and climate priority. We all know how important that is on the North Shore. The trouble is, it will be extremely expensive. We're talking billions. So realistically, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Could be a decade or more. And so because this is such a big issue, council could actually create a separate type of lobbying strategy for a new crossing. And that's why it wasn't included in this motion initially. However, I think it's important to include it in any advocacy we do, while also lobbying for shorter term solutions to reduce congestion, such as immediate funding for bus rapid transit. I know a lot of work has been done on this by Mayor Little, and I'm thankful for that. But I get that some may question the value of continuing to do this kind of advocacy work. So I want to speak to its importance. Advocacy isn't a single action, it's cumulative. And formal submissions like this, backed by ongoing engagement, media attention, and a growing public understanding, can make a difference. That's how priorities move from local concerns into provincial funding decisions. So if we want results, we need to engage strategically in the processes that actually shape decisions. And this is one of those processes. So we don't have dates yet, but these hearings take place in June. And FYI, they can require a full day's commitment for a short presentation, not by staff, but by the mayor, myself, or any other councillors who are interested. If this motion is approved, staff will prepare submissions and briefing notes that will form the basis of our presentation to the Standing Committee on Finance. I want to note that any work done by staff will be invaluable as we go forward, including for the next council. The content produced, for example, can be repurposed for public information on the website, other communications about issues that impact residents, meetings that councillors will have with ministers this fall at the UBCM conference, etc. So the message stays consistent and is repeated over time to senior levels of government. If we want to see progress on the issues that matter most to our community, we need to show up consistently and effectively where those decisions are being made. And this motion, I believe, does this, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson is the seconder.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Vogt, for bringing the motion. This motion raises significant issues which are decided at the provincial level and in the provincial budget, but which have a profound impact on our community. Councillor Vogt focused on transportation. I'll just focus on the Ports Property Tax Act, a $4.5 million tax subsidy, which the residents of the district are providing to the heavy industry class in the district. And we've talked about this before, but it illustrates how a provincial decision has such a profound impact on our local government. And like Councillor Pope, I believe we need a strategy, and speaking to the Standing Committee on Finance is a very reasonable part of that strategy. So I thank Councillor Pope for bringing it forward. And for my part, I do look forward to being part of this, to working with council to make our local needs better known to the decision makers in the provincial government.
Do we have any information in regards to, like, this is quite a lengthy list of items to bring forward to the standing committee, and I'm just wondering, Mr. Fox or Mr. Fox, if there is sort of a restriction as to how many items, if this is something that is something that is sort of a typical presentation to the standing committee? Is there a limit on items that we can discuss? Is there a time limit? Like how is this addressed? Does anybody have any information? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Genevieve.
This year. Thank you very much. So we know that that different committees lay it out differently in terms of what the timing will be to present and how many things that you can present within your time period or within a separate submission. And those details will be coming out in the next few weeks. We had to preliminarily submit a placeholder just so that we could have an application in before the deadline, which was April 10th, which gave an overview of basically this. And we have not heard back yet whether we're even selected to give a presentation, because not every, but there's hundreds that want to.
So could I clarify? So we've already submitted a placeholder to the standing committee on these items? Okay.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor, to clarify and build upon Councillor Pope's comments, yes, we did submit an application so that we did not miss the opportunity to express interest. However, we do have the ability up until, I believe it's the end of May, to revise the topics that we'd like to discuss and speak to, so that's what's before council this evening. Should council pass this motion, then we would go forward and provide the updated list supplementary to the application already submitted.
So what was the original list?
Thank you. Through the acting mayor,
it's in the attachment.
Yes, I would say that theme of the presentation was listed as general at the initial application, and then the two areas of interest that we had, just to pick two to begin our application, was provincial funding for affordable housing and North Shore utility bills. However, we do have the ability to add the additional bullets that are in the motion on the floor at this time.
Okay, and then the standing committee, so one would assume that the North Shore Rapid Bus funding would go to the Ministry of Transportation within the standing committee?
The select standing committee on finance takes all of the information that it receives that pertain to various different departments and submits it to the finance committee. And then the finance committee
prioritizes and makes recommendations going forward.
And the full report goes online and it's public, and all of the presentations and submissions are public as well.
And do we know, do we have any idea how much time we have in front of the select committee to present this list?
Through the acting mayor, that is not known at this time.
Okay. So I think, you know, there's a lot on the list. And we have talked about, you know, the issue around funding for a new crossing to the North Shore is one issue. And then there's the issue of bus rapid transit. That's a second issue. Improving funding for affordable housing beyond the shovel-ready projects that have already been put out in regards to provincial initiatives. So there's that mechanism. And allowing North Shore residents to defer their utility bills. We have had a discussion on that. And the issue that is connected to that is we have to, if we change one class, it has to be shifted over to another class. I know West Van looked at that and decided against it. Our issue is industry. Where would the shift go? Fair distribution of North Shore wastewater treatment plant costs, or is it funding, additional funding to offset the allocation of the North Shore wastewater treatment plant, and then changes to the port property tax? We've been talking about that for many, many years. So I'm just wondering if is the goal to sort of put all of these issues to the select standing committee and hope that they pick off a couple, or should we be prioritizing sort of what our top three are? I'm just wondering the strategy, because I mean, if we're going to pass a motion, you know, and have an opportunity to sit in front of this committee, wouldn't it be prudent for us to determine what sort of the big ones are, and use the time wisely, even though we don't even at this point really know how much time we have? Is it like half an hour or an hour? I know with ministers, when we go to these conventions, it's like speed dating. We get like, you know, 3 minutes and you got to get it all out. So I feel like we're going in a little bit blind with this, given that we have submitted an application. I'm just wondering for some guidance there. Mr. Fox, do you have any guidance to provide us in regards to this motion?
Thank you, and through the chair. I believe we'll have to wait for exactly what we can submit, which should be coming soon. I know in past they have sometimes limited the amount of issues and the amount of time that you are able to present, but without knowing that, currently this would seem fair. But again, I don't know what the rules will be until they do formally let us know. So if council wanted to, you could prioritize them if there are a limited amount. Otherwise, we could try and submit them all and see where it goes. Again, I believe corporate did look into what we could put forward at the time, and they did say that a placeholder would be fine until a motion came through council.
Okay.
So that is what we've done, is work on the motion.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Daniluk, do you have any comments to add?
For the acting mayor, looking at the list myself, obviously the largest investments would be into transit and looking at
Pull your mic closer, will you, Mr. Daniluk? There you go.
Focusing on transit, the North Shore wastewater treatment plant, and likely the Port Property Tax Act may be the most impactful financially, but I'm sure there are other considerations.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Milburn? Any comments?
Nothing to add tonight. Thank you, Worship.
Okay.
Through the acting mayor, I would like to clarify that if we are not selected to present in person or virtually, we are still provided the opportunity to provide a submission through this consultation process in writing, in which case all of these could be, it doesn't appear that there is a limit on the length of the submission that we can provide as well.
Okay, well, that's excellent information. Thank you for adding that. That helps a lot. So even if we don't get face-to-face, we can submit information in writing. So, you know, if there's going to be an opportunity to meet with the provincial government to once again raise a lot of these very significant issues for our community, you know, of course, let's take that opportunity. I haven't experienced sort of this approach before in the past, but you know, it certainly won't hurt. You know, one would wish that there was already a prioritization of the kind of infrastructure that we need in this community and on the North Shore, you know, given, you know, all the changes that we've seen in the last decades, and that there would be, you know, an understanding of some of the equity and fairness in some of these decisions, some of the challenges in some of these decisions, or the fact that the decisions have not been made at all. And I think that's a big frustration. So, you know, certainly, you know, the approach to continue to lobby and keep these items front and center from the perspective of our community, I do see the benefit in that. And if, you know, staff will just keep us posted when we get word, and then, you know, we can have a discussion offline as to how these are going to be prioritized, if there's some structure in this approach, and if not, then we can certainly submit probably all of our perspectives in writing and send our thoughts. So we do, Councillor Ma, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm supportive of doing what we can to get the attention of the provincial government regarding the many challenges that the district, its residents, businesses, industry are facing, especially since some of these issues are direct result of provincial legislation. We can do this meeting or application to the Select Standing Committee. I also believe that more direct advocacy is effective. As a recent example, I think about the meeting that Mayor Little and Mayor Buchanan have with the Premier about the concerns about the governance and the unfair treatment of the North Shore taxpayers and the unfair treatment that we're facing. We haven't yet seen change, but working together as a city, the meeting was with the Premier and not just the committee. I also believe since the start of this council term, our staff are having regular meetings with BC Housing staff about projects in the district, and some council members have directly engaged with Minister Boyle on housing challenges at various events and conferences. These personal relationships and contacts are important. I further believe that these steps will plant the seed for change. As I mentioned before, I support the motion as every little bit helps. But at the same time, we should focus our energy and those of our staff where we believe we get the best return. On that point, I would ask that the CEO work with council to set those priorities and then manage the workload of the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. And I share that perspective in regards to our priorities as we have our new CAO on the ground running after 3 months, right? Grabbing onto all those big issues and sorting ourselves out. We do have to have that discussion about priorities, where we are with our own budgets. How do we move forward? Where have we been? Where are we right now? And where are we going into the future? The community is frustrated, and Councillor Hanson, you bring this up a lot in regards to traffic congestion, lack of infrastructure. Where is that? When do we start prioritizing those decisions? Understanding how we're going to move people within our boundaries and our borders, and in relationship to our neighbors. All of those things haven't been discussed, and we haven't discussed them for quite some time. We've recently met with Allied during our tax rate, and the impacts to them continue in regards to the Port Property Tax Act, the issues, the complexities around deferring utility bills. We've had that answer, and the challenges and the ongoing discussion with the North Shore Wastewater Treatment Metro Vancouver. I will say, and I said this earlier to some members of council, that the allocation can be reconsidered. A new board will be put in place in the fall in Metro Vancouver. We all have marching orders in regards to communicating with our colleagues around the region to explain the significant impacts that the taxpayers of the North Shore have had to absorb because of this, because of the sewage district and the way that it's set up. It's a governance model that I don't believe is fair and works. It is not simply a rounding error. It's like another project, and that kind of thing needs to be discussed. So lots of issues. No few issues around this community. So on that note, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question. Oh, Councillor Forbes, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
That's okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor. Sitting for 8 years on council, I've never had a placemaker established by a member of council without the rest of council at least being notified by it and not in a formal meeting. So if that placemaker was sent for like April 10th deadline?
To the Acting Mayor, yes, we had to submit. We received the email to Mayor and Council, and then interest was expressed. So in order to make sure that we didn't miss the opportunity, submitted a application that we were interested, knowing that if council did not support it, we were able to revoke that at the same time as well. So we just didn't want to miss the opportunity to submit the interest because it did close on April 10th. So we did meet that time frame.
It was a bit of a timing issue.
understand that, but I'd like to refer it to the CAO to see if there's a better way for us to do that process instead of being sort of caught off guard when we did have a couple of weeks here that we could have been informed about it. You don't have to answer me tonight. I just like to refer it to you to see if there's a better process.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, I think as we move forward, it'll be key to talk about where our advocacy is going to be focused. I've heard tonight from several councillors that we should have priorities and a plan moving forward. I think that'll be one way of making sure that we're ahead of these issues. On this one here, again, we did have a conversation with the mayor, and we did decide this would be the best way to get it to talk with council about this. Each one of these have been mentioned from council, so it's not that any of these haven't been in past something that council's concerned or advocating for. So at that, I didn't feel at that time that it would have been better through an email, etc. So again, we decided to bring it up at a meeting through this manner. But in future, yes, there are other ways. We can always go on the vein of continuous improvement and try and make sure council is updated immediately on these.
Agree with any of the points that are up there. They're all extremely important to the North Shore. It's the process that I disagree with. And one other thing, we're talking about not knowing about the perimeters of what we submit until May sometime, and it has to be done in June. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you through the acting mayor. That's correct.
So I have a concern because as far as staff time, so again, I would refer that to the CAO because we have budgets, finance committee is pretty busy trying to meet things. We have other departments that are busy right now. This is a really critical sort of time of the year, and I don't want to short or pull staff away from other things that maybe they have a deadline on. So I'm concerned about staff time. So I'll leave that. I'll refer that back to you as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks for the comment. On a lot of these initiatives, we already do have a lot of information gathered and actually have been advocating on several of these. I don't believe it would be a lot of staff time. Really, it would be for if a councillor or we just submit it in writing to the process. If it's accepted and the province wants more information, that would be a decision point if we wanted to put more staff time into it. However, I know that we continue to do a lot of work on the port property tax, and we continue working with all of other municipalities that are affected on that. Wastewater treatment plant, again, we continue to advocate with the city on that. We are sending a letter soon to Metro on that again. And with the deferring the utility bills, I know there's been a little discussion, and I believe we had a small briefing note or a report on that. So I believe we have some ideas around on how that would work. And then improving funding for affordable housing, we have a lot of information on that one too. Bus rapid transit, the mayor has a lot of information on it. We've been doing a lot of work through engineering already on it and trying to move that process forward, including trying to get costs with I'm blanking on their name. TransLink. Thank you. I don't know why exactly. And also for the crossing, we do have information on the traffic volumes, etc., and what's needed. So I think on that we have been working on them as administration and have a lot of information that could be quickly formatted into briefing notes if we are successful in further meetings with the minister.
I'm aware of all of the things that you've talked about and how much information we may have, but we don't know the perimeters yet of exactly what we're presenting. So I just would like consideration for staff time meeting other deadlines.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Yeah, it's all of these things are, if they don't know about all these things, then they're not paying attention, good heavens. And you would want, you just wish that some of these things weren't such challenge, because really they're all very fueled with common sense and a plan. And sometimes, clearly there hasn't been much of a plan to address a lot of these issues. A number of them have been, in the making for years and years and years. So anything we can do to raise attention, I'll be in support of. So on that note, I don't see any other comments. Call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. That's it for the evening's agenda. We have no other business. Are there any reports from council? Councillor Ma, quick report.
It might not be quick because it's been a while since we've had reports. On April 8th, along with the CAO and a few senior staff members, I toured the facilities of the Intellectual Disability Societies and one of their group homes. It was a great opportunity to get a better understanding of the issues faced by the clients of the IDS. I want to say thanks to Len Slade, the chair of the board, and the staff. Also on April 8th, I attended a Seniors Voice Forum organized by MLA Lynn Block. Some of the key issues raised there is in terms of long-term care beds. We're currently short 2,400 beds, and the wait list is 2 years. I hope the provincial government is aware of that. Then on April 9th, along with the mayor, Councillor Back, and some staff, I attended the Vancouver Chamber event on the future of transportation on North Shore, a presentation by CEO of TransLink, Kevin Quinn. Some of the key issues raised was there's now going to be washrooms at Phipps Exchange. If I had my notes right, there's a 12% increase on bus service on the North Shore, and the R2 extension is scheduled to be launched for September 2026, so that's ahead of schedule. And on April 9th, Councillor Back and I attended the gala celebrating the 50th anniversary of the North Shore Disability Resource Center. It was a wonderful night. There's many years of good work by this organization. And then on Tuesday, April 21st, I attended Cozy Night, hosted by the Blue Ridge Community Association. Thank you, Eric and Jeff. It was a good opportunity to speak with residents on local issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. I also attended the North Shore Disability Resource Gala. Deb, that's okay, no problem. It was a wonderful event, and it was City of North Vancouver was there in full force, and the three of us representing the district. It was a lovely evening. We also had the council meetings, Metro Vancouver, on Saturday morning, and we attended that, many of us. It was a virtual session, and they updated us on the governance model and some of the questions that the board will be wrestling with in regards to the size of the board, and then some further updates on the budget. We've got the Lower Mainland Local Government Association conference this week up in Whistler. Wednesday, we'll be attending, many of us, Wednesday to Friday, and opening day at our local marinas are coming up, and the sun is shining. So on that note, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the work of staff. I will take a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Back, seconded by Councillor Forbes. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you so much for everyone attending tonight and the decisions that were made on behalf of our community. Good evening.